to consider and discuss. But before we get to those, we have certain communications that were sent by two different advisory boards, and perhaps we can discuss them today. The first one is the Historic Preservation Board. Is Mr. Bray here? Yeah, there you are. Can you want to come up to the podium? You've also asked to speak on these. So perhaps you can give the City Commission a little bit more information regarding the first motion that was made to ask the Commission to consider a revitalization plan to bridge the Sailboat Bend and the Himmershey historic districts, including a request to provide initial funding. You want to talk to us a little bit about that? How are you, Mr. Bray?
I'm fine, thank you. Happy New Year. Well, we had been invited to attend the revitalization of the H1 Himmershey district, and so at that point it seemed like a logical motion to make to extend that into the Sailboat Bend Historic District to bridge the two, because from our understanding is that it's a priority for the city, and so if that's the case, then we need to make some kind of effort to revitalize it and bring it back to life and to see that it's a visible part of our community and that it's an important part of our community. So therefore, to do that, either do a charrette or to do a research project or consultants to help in that process to explore the ways in which we could implement a more effective way of presenting the historic aspect of our city.
So, Commissioner Glassman, this is in your district. Tell us a little bit about what this entails.
Sure. Well, thank you, Mayor, and Happy New Year, everybody. First of all, Mr. Bray's correct. We recently had that revitalization workshop. As you remember, last January, we did talk about the Himmershey District as one of our commission priorities and goals, and work has commenced on that, and I thank staff for all of that, and we're moving forward with that to make sure that we're activating that area and making sure that that area is everything that it needs to be, especially with everything that we're seeing happening in and around it with Broward Boulevard development. I concur with Mr. Bray. I think this is a great idea. I read through some of the backups, so I saw the minutes and I saw the discussion. I've also been involved in discussions with folks from the Sailboat Bend Civic Association. That would be my concern. I would want to make sure that we're all at the table. I would want to make sure that the neighborhood had a very strong part in this plan of bridging the two, but it makes perfect sense. They're neighboring districts. They're both historic districts. Sailboat Bend is the only residential historic district in Fort Lauderdale, and obviously Himmershey is a historic district as well. So this makes perfect sense. I think that we should do all that we can to make sure that this is a reality. Again, my focus would be to make sure that we're bringing in folks, not just from the Historic Preservation Board, but also from the neighborhood to make sure that everyone has a seat at the table.
So what are next steps then? Is it to convene a charrette, to hire a facilitator, to fund, is Anthony Fajardo, Anthony, do you want to speak to this?
Good afternoon, Mayor Anthony Fajardo. I apologize. I was backstage talking to IT staff. So
okay, I'm sorry. So this is regarding this comes from the Historic Preservation Board, and it's communication in which they're asking us to move forward with some sort of revisit of the historic districts of Sailboat Bend and Himmershey, and perhaps have a charrette to determine, what's the status of the historic districts? How can they be improved, or what are the next steps in trying to ensure their continuation? And have you had any conversations with anybody from the Historic Preservation Board regarding this?
Not recently. We did have an effort, I think, back in 2016 or so, where we looked at the boundaries and we were thinking of making adjustments based on some recommendations from not only the neighborhood but some other professionals, but we never really moved forward with that. I think the best step to move forward with something is to get the individuals involved, the stakeholders. So if we did some sort of charrette to kind of talk about what their goals were, to see where we align and where we don't align with the current ordinance would be a good first step.
Okay, so is that an initiative that we can now take on as a city to find a facilitator or begin the process of convening a charrette so that these neighborhoods can begin the process of accomplishing the goals you just described?
Yeah, I think what we'd have to do is talk to DSD to see what resources they have available, see if it's something that we could do in-house. I suspect we probably can't. They're stretched pretty thin. And we could look at possibly bringing in a professional to help them with that. But it's something we can definitely start working on.
Okay. And Mayor, I am aware that the neighborhood, the Sailboat Bend Civic Association, is working on a master plan for the neighborhood. So I think it's a good time for us to all bring everyone together and move forward, as one, in conjunction with the Himmershey District, Sailboat Bend's master plan. Again, making sure that all of the stakeholders have a voice and that the neighborhood's input is there every step of the way.
Okay, so we'll leave that in your hands then. Commissioner, do you want to say something?
Yes, I do have a question. Excited about what's being proposed. Also wanting to know, how is it funded? How do we pay for an opportunity like this? Where does the funding come from?
It would have to come from the general fund if we were going to hire somebody from the outside to assist.
Could this come from any of the accounts that the DSD has?
Not off the top of my head, I can't think of one, but we can take a look and see what options we have. We'll work with Laura's team to see what we can do.
And although it would be a while, because I know how those cycles work, but are there perhaps grant funding opportunities for something like that, being that we are a certified local government and we have no required match, in-kind match?
None come to the top of my head, but there could be. There are a lot of grants out there, and I know we've been successful in securing several of them, and since we are a CLG, we don't have to match a lot of times. So we'll work with Tricia on doing some research. What we can do is come back with like a kind of a proposal of how we think we can tackle it, and get some feedback from the commission if you'd like.
If you could do that, that would be great.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the timing is perfect.
Okay.
Okay, but don't go away. Mr. Bray, also another communication from your board talks about transfer of development rights. It says to instruct staff to study or to obtain a consultant to study the transfer of development rights for the maximum potential number of units currently available, and to look at best practices in Broward County to optimize the TDR program. Now, Anthony, do we not already have a TDR program?
We do. We've had some interest in the transfer development rights. I don't believe we've had any actually go through fully. So when we started that program, as you recall, this is something that you had championed many years ago. When we started that program, there was some concern about where we were moving densities to and from, so we modeled it after other programs around the state. I think now is a good time to actually look at it again, because with what's going on with Live Local and the number of units that we get from that, as well as the quote-unquote Geller units that we get from the county, it's probably a good idea to analyze that TDR program and see if it aligns with how easily it is to get units from these other programs, because we don't want to stymie the one program in favor of another, if that makes sense.
It makes sense to me. Mr. Bray, do you have any thoughts on this? What was the expectations of the board with this communication to the commission?
I think a lot of it came down because there was a lot of discussion on this, that it was more complicated than what was clear for all the board members. And so with the advice and guidance of the staff, legal as well as the DSD, was that we needed more clarity on it and to get that kind of explained and developed a little bit further, because it wasn't being utilized at this point, and to get it to be a better program for them, we needed to look into it and explore it and get it more visible to the public in order to be utilized.
Well, I think that goes around the table here. I mean, I think the commission would like to know that too. I kind of thought we already had a program in place. I didn't know. I've never seen it implemented or utilized by a developer yet. So maybe we need to rethink the approach to this concept and make it more applicable to the needs of the city. Did you want to say something?
Yes, I would. Thank you. I would recommend that everyone reads the minutes of the Historic Preservation Board that talks about this topic, because it's very clear that there are too many limitations. It's very clear that the TDR, Transfer Development Rights Program, is not working. So we do have to figure out what the problem is. We have to tweak it. And that's why we have no applications. Again, I'm not going to go through and read everything there, but it's all there. The discussion was excellent. We heard from folks that are dealing with this, that have tried to deal with it. We heard from some of the attorneys that represent clients who try to deal with this. But it's very clear that it's not working. And I think that this is actually part of a broader discussion that we have to have. We have to actually talk about incentives in a greater way. If we are serious about caring about historic preservation in our city, we have got to tackle the concept of incentives for people to want to preserve historic structures. You know, in the last, not that long really, we've lost some really significant structures in Fort Lauderdale. They're going in and they're getting approved for demolition in Sailboat Bend. We lost the Anheuser-Busch in Riviera Isles. We lost that estate. Recently, we just lost the what was called the White House, La Maison Blanche, that iconic home on the water that everyone recognizes as part of Fort Lauderdale, 1930s neoclassical structure. We're losing these buildings, we're losing these properties, and it's understandable because it's very costly to maintain these historic structures, and we really offer nothing to the owner. So if we are serious about historic preservation, and I don't mean just for public buildings, which obviously we have a little bit more of a say over, we really have to figure out more to incentivize folks to want to preserve historic structures. Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments? Okay, then anything else, Mr. Bray? Okay, so you will come back to the City Commission with perhaps at a conference meeting to discuss with the Commission how we can do better with our Transfer of Development Rights program so that we can provide those incentives in order to secure and preserve some of the historic structures. You know, I'm on some sort of Facebook feed, and every day I get a picture of what like a street in Manhattan looked like in 1880. And it's such a shame, all the beautiful buildings that were destroyed in New York to build basically skyscrapers now, and totally lost its character. I guess it's developed a new character now, but you know, what little we have that is worth preserving, I just think that we need to take more initiatives in trying to incentivize developers and property owners so that we can preserve a little bit of the vestiges of the past that make Fort Lauderdale the great place that it is. So, okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We have another communication from the Community Services Board. This is regarding to amend the number of required meetings. Is there someone here from the Community Services Board?
Good afternoon, Mayor. I don't believe there's anybody here, but I can talk through the communication. So the Community Services Board is currently required to have a minimum of 10 meetings per year. The board feels that there are opportunities for them to be a little bit more efficient in completing their role and their tasks that they have assigned to that board. So they would like us to amend the code to change that from a minimum of 10 meetings a year to a minimum of 8 meetings per year. It's not saying they can't have more than 8, but just to reset that minimum amount from 10 to 8.
Any objection from the commission? Okay. Okay. You can bring that forward.
Thank you.
Is Christian Garay here? Christian, I'm sorry. I just saw that you had asked to speak. You want to come and speak on that item? He came to speak on the communications with the Historic Preservation Board. It got stuck to the other one. I didn't see it.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Christian Gray. I'm the president of the Sailboat Bend Civic Association and also a member of the Sailboat Bend Master Plan Committee. I'd like to simply make a statement that the Sailboat Bend Civic Association is very serious about historic preservation, which is why we've compiled and developed this Master Plan Committee to start to look at the future of Sailboat Bend, look at the future of the historic homes, historic buildings that are located within Sailboat Bend. We have a meeting with Commissioner Glassman next week where the committee will kind of spend some time obtaining input, sharing some of our findings that over the last 4 months the committee has put together, and beginning to have conversations with the community, not only members of the Civic Association, but those that are non-members, those that live in the community, those that live around Sailboat Bend. Begin to obtain input from them and see what they believe the future of Sailboat Bend should look like. Part of the Master Plan Committee's sort of work that they've done and we've put together is to identify forums for the Civic Association to assist in finding funds to get the studies done, to help preserve the community, to turn Sailboat Bend into what we believe it can be, and that is a beautiful neighborhood that is a good representation of what Fort Lauderdale sees historic preservation as. Maintaining these homes that were built in the 1920s, I myself live in one, and showing the city of Fort Lauderdale that Sailboat Bend is somewhere that should be visited by tourists, somewhere that individuals should come and learn about the history of our community and our great city. Back in the day, we used to have flower tours in that neighborhood, and people would pay to take tours of the neighborhood to view the different gardens that were throughout the community. And that has, that's no longer around, but I think the future of Sailboat Bend could be that of a historic, well-maintained, and preserved community. And so I echo Commissioner Glassman's comments about bringing everyone to the table, not just the Historic Preservation Board, not just the Sailboat Bend Master Plan Committee, but those that live in and around the community and in our city to have a discussion and see how we move forward together.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you.
And thank you, Christian. And Mayor, I just wanted to mention for those that are not aware, but I do believe that we owe this to this neighborhood. I've done a drive-through tour with the city manager and other staff members through that neighborhood, pointing out things that I think we could easily do to make sure that the character and the aesthetics and the streetscape was what it needs to be. This is Fort Lauderdale's oldest neighborhood, our oldest neighborhood in the city of Fort Lauderdale, and it's where our history began, and it is our only, as I mentioned earlier, our only historically designated residential neighborhood. So it's the least we can do. We really owe it to the neighborhood and to the city, and I really would like us to step up our efforts. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else wish to speak on this, Vice Mayor?
Yes, in regards to the preservation, it is always a great effort and a great opportunity to move in that direction. And I am one who wholeheartedly believes in preserving our history and making sure that future to come are aware of what our city was and what it is and what it can be. And I want to also take this opportunity to include, moving forward, to have a conversation with District 3 as well, to highlight and identify areas within the district that would also fall under that canopy, under that category of areas that could be preserved. So I would like to see that this conversation expand. You said let us all sit at the table. Yes, let's make this as much as we can a city-wide effort where we can identify all the cities that started out. The communities that started out, and in District 3, if you're not aware, that was the beginning ground for the black community, the Caribbeans that came over, migrants that came from Georgia and Mississippi, Alabama, and it's a strong legacy in the community as well. And I would love to see us capitalize and make sure that this part of Fort Lauderdale history is known and it grows as well.
Yes. And Vice Mayor, I would absolutely love that. And I'll tell you why. Even before I began serving as a commissioner for District 2, when I was working with the Broward Trust for Historic Preservation, and also I sat on the Broward County Historical Commission. I tried really hard. I had meetings, I don't know if you remember, but back in the day when Mosaic was working with the CRA in our city, I had meetings with Mosaic. I had meetings with the CRA. I brought forward all of the Main Street grants, all of the National Trust for Historic Preservation opportunities for District 3, because I wanted it to be not just historic in name only. I wanted it to be historic in designation meaning, and also some teeth to it. Unfortunately, I was unsuccessful. I was not able to bring those that were the decision makers in line to go for those kinds of Main Street grants, to still make sure that history was being told. But I agree with you 100%, and I would love to revisit that because it really goes hand in hand with what we're talking about right here. So,
Yes.
Thank you for saying that.
Yes, so I am open, I am excited. This is one of the things, one of the items that is close to my heart. So yes, we'll try again
Thank you.
till we succeed.
That'll be great. I actually tried to get the Eula Johnson home designated. I was unsuccessful. Things like that. I mean, there are things we can do, because I will tell you, as was mentioned earlier, heritage tourism, cultural tourism, is a huge economic engine in our country. The tourists that come to places like Fort Lauderdale and others, the tourists that come not necessarily just to sit on the beach and go into the ocean, which I'm not putting down in any way, but the tourists that come to a city like Fort Lauderdale because of places like you've mentioned or that I've mentioned, or to see the Bonnet House or the Stranahan House, or to go on a walking tour of our historic districts, those people spend a lot more money and they stay a lot longer. There is a huge economic impact that we need to tap into in terms of heritage tourism. So let's get to work. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, if I may, I just wanted to remind the Commission that we are doing a citywide survey of all the neighborhoods in the city. That's been an ongoing effort. We recently received another grant funding not too long ago, CLG related, that we don't have to match. And I believe the new one is for Dorsey Riverbend. Yeah, so we are getting through it. So what we did, it's part of our overall plan to look at the entire city, but we started in the areas where we knew that there was going to be some historic significance because of just the nature and the age of what was going on. So we are working through that.
Again, I always share with in regards to surveys and our approach, how we address and reach out to the residents, the neighbors within District 3. If we can have a conversation of how we can get tangible paper surveys to individuals where we can get that captured. Because we still have that issue where with broadband internet access to online. Whatever we can do to make sure, I'm willing to help get the information out so we can get the input back, so we can definitely gather that data.
At this stage, these surveys don't really engage the property owners. We look through historical records and the information that we have to determine which properties meet that threshold. What you're talking about will come later once we get a green light from the Commission to either look at these other areas that we maybe wanted to talk about, individual designation or a designation with a geographic boundary.
Yes.
But absolutely, and I'm happy to talk to you in more detail about that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on to CF1, Quarterly Investment Report for period ending September 30th, 2023. Linda?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. This is Linda Short, Director of Finance. I'm here to present to you the Quarterly Investment Report. With me today, I have Richard Pengelly with PFM Asset Management. He's our advisor who helps to put the report together for us. As it was with the quarter ending June 30th, this quarter as well is a good news story. The city's overall investments earned 3.51% annual for the year, which equated to about $22 million in revenue to the city. I'm here for any questions if you have any.
Where does that money go?
Well, the money is split up based upon how much each fund has an allocation. General fund is one of the largest ones, and water and sewer fund as well has a large percentage of those investments.
So those are the various enterprise funds that those get put back into.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, at least it's a positive.
It is. Last year
Right.
was negative, so yes, it's a
Well, the
positive news
market's
story.
breaking records, so I would imagine we would be riding that same wave.
Hopefully, and he can provide you that update for this quarter if you wanted to know what we're doing this year or what's planned. Richard?
Anyone have any questions?
Before Richard starts, yes.
Go ahead.
Linda, you had indicated we're up 3.5.
1% for the
Okay.
year.
All right, and when we spoke in our pre-agenda meeting, there was a highlight on a 1.5% increase. Could you?
Yeah, well, with the budget, we had projected, I think, 2% as the earnings for the city, and it ended up being 3.51%. So we end up 1.5% above what we originally budgeted for the investment earnings. So that's just additional revenue to the general fund, which will fall back to fund balance for future use.
Do we have that value for that 1.5%?
I don't have it, but I can provide it to you, and
Okay.
my team is working to gather that information
Okay.
for you.
All right,
Okay?
thank you. Thank
So if you want to know how the market's trending up this year, Richard can provide you just a market update of what we're looking for this year.
Yeah, I'll just provide a quick outlook. From where we are here, we're in a much better position for interest earnings compared to the past couple years. Quarter after quarter, we kind of said, hey, this is a positive environment for earnings. Unfortunately, as rates are rising, we saw the paper values go down. Now that we're in a position where the Fed has indicated that it's likely to hold rates at this level and start declining them over the course of the year, we'll see a reversal in the market value direction. So before we saw negative market values in 2022, 2021, we'll start seeing that reverse as interest rates start coming down. But where we started a couple years ago, we were near zero interest rate levels. Now we're in the 4 or 5% levels. So that's going to be positive for most of the fiscal year, at least for the outlook. However, as we start thinking about what next year looks like, we're much likely to see lower interest rate levels going into the next year. But for now, we're working with staff to try and fix out interest rates across the curve out a year or two where we can and where it makes sense based on your cash flow needs. And so we'll be looking to do that with staff.
Any other questions? Can I just, Linda, can I ask you a question? With these, with the incomes that we're receiving, for example, police and fire retirement system, we're able to meet our obligations as a result of the report you're presenting today, correct?
That is correct. In all actuality, because we're beating the assumed rate of return, that helps to lower our contributions going forward.
Right. So the bond that we secured a number of years ago, you have a ballpark figure where we are in paying that down?
Yes, we are at 186 million right now at the end of last year. So we've paid off, it was 337 million. So we've paid down, we're 186 million left outstanding. But because the funds are earning more than the 4% interest rate that those bonds were issued at, it's really been beneficial to the city to have done that deal when we did it back in 2012.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on to Business 1, City Homeless Initiatives Update. Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mayor, members of the Commission. We have Lisa Agathon, who's going to lead the discussion and share some of the highlights of efforts that are being done. As you know, homelessness is one of the top priorities of the City Commission. It's a very fluid and a very labor-intensive process, but staff will share their updates and efforts.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. Louisa Agathon, Neighbor Support Manager. Before we get started, I just want to recognize the teams that helped collaborate in our initiatives for addressing homelessness. So we have our homeless outreach officers from the police department here. We also have the MORE team, which is the mobile integrated unit from the fire department. And then we have Neighbor Support here, representative with us. We also have task force with us here today. So all of us make up the boots on the ground that help address homelessness in the city. So to give you an overview of what we've accomplished and what's our plan ahead, I'm going to introduce you to Lisette Palmero, and she is their Homeless Initiatives Program Manager with Neighbor Support.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. I'm Lisette Palmero, Homeless Initiatives Program Manager with Neighbor Support, and I have an overview from fiscal year 23. Just to note this picture here, this is our housing navigation team with a father-son who was previously homeless, and they are now housed. And we're going to do the fiscal year 23 review, go over the fiscal year 24 City Commission priorities, and then look at some complexities and opportunities. These are previous PIT count numbers in relation with Broward County and Fort Lauderdale. It's important to note that in 2022, the data was very limited as it was held only on one day versus a week long or a few days that it normally is. And coming up this year in 2024, Broward County has chosen to forego the PIT count through HUD. So with the lead of Task Force for Ending Homelessness, there will be a survey of unsheltered homeless individuals and families, and that will take place the week of January 24th here in the city of Fort Lauderdale.
Would you define for everyone what the PIT count, what PIT stands for?
Yes, I'm sorry. The PIT count is point in time count. So it is just that. It is counting of the homeless individuals during a point in time of usually a few days at the beginning of each year. And here's our review for fiscal year 23. So as far as the fire department, there were over 54,000 total calls for service. 4,143 calls were homeless related. 845 were related to substance abuse, and 413 were related to mental health. And from PD, they had over 250,000 total calls for service. And of those, over 7,000 were homeless related. And then we have our homeless outreach team, who is part of PD. They connected with over 2,000, they had over 2,794 connections in outreach with the homeless individuals on the streets. They wrote 56 notices to appear, and they reunified 59 individuals. The reunifications is connecting a homeless individual with a relative or friend in another city or state, and they had the ability to get them a bus ticket to get back there. And then in Q Alert, we had a total of 267 inquiries logged into the system from phone calls and emails through City Commission. And these are the homeless initiatives. Community Court, which is held weekly. In 2023, we had 1,255 visits. Between those cited a notice to appear and walk-ins. Notice to appears made up 2% of all visits, and 39% of those cited appeared in court. 1 in 3 individuals has been in community court before, so more than one time. And then our housing navigation program, which is with Task Force for Ending Homelessness, in our first year achieved a 65% housing success rate. So it is important to note that some of the individuals or families that were part of this list of the 43 in the fiscal year 23 may have been added at the end of the year and now housed in fiscal year 24. So it's carried over. And then community education and support. We have done presentations before 30 neighborhood and business meetings. So we are very engaged with civic associations and businesses alike. Our fiscal year 24 City Commission priorities, housing accessibility. We are going to address congregation of individuals at intersections. We're going to coordinate services to address mental health, physical health, and addiction for those that are homeless or at risk of being homeless, and improve the feeling of safety for neighbors. So what's in place? Right now for congregation at the intersections, we have the outreach, which is done by our HOT team, the homeless outreach team officers. We now have new in fiscal year 24 a hotspot deployment program, which is together in conjunction with neighbor support, PD, fire, as well as Task Force for Ending Homelessness. Coordination of services, we have the reunification program from PD, community court, which is held by neighbor support, our housing navigation program, which is neighbor support, PD, fire, and task force. We have program funding from the Housing Community Development Division, and we are working with the MORE team in fire. Improvement of feeling of safety. We are doing our community education and support with PD and neighbor support, and our homeless outreach team officers, new in 24, will be added for nights and weekends. And other, we have COC members. Vice Mayor is on the COC board, and we have other members from City of Fort Lauderdale serving on the board as well. We have other Broward County advisory boards that are attended, municipality working group, and we have our new city homeless advisory committee. These are the current complexities of homelessness that we all in conjunction are facing. So just some of them are the hot spots: legal restraints of enforcement, limited shelter capacity, availability of beds to the City of Fort Lauderdale, visibility, mental health, and substance abuse, just to name a few. And we have our Homeless Advisory Committee. So they were created to really look at creating a strategic plan, which right now they have identified their top 3 topics as shelter, housing, and funding to start working towards this plan. And it's initially to prevent, reduce, and address homelessness. Their role is also to assist in identifying funding for homeless initiatives, review best practices in addressing homelessness, raise awareness regarding the city's actions in addressing homelessness, determine any gaps in programs that address homelessness, and develop performance indicators. Right now, there's a limit of 24 months for this committee. And I'd also like to note that we still have a vacancy for a business representative on the board. Opportunities in progress. So on the funding side, Neighbor Support has a budget which includes $315,000 for the housing navigation program, which is with Task Force. The police department budget includes 3 new officers to enhance services for nights and weekends, which will be added to the homeless outreach team. We are pending a state grant for community court in the amount of $100,000. We have a state legislative request for a mental health housing program for $500,000. And we have a federal request for $2 million for hotspot deployment program. On the government side, We will be meeting with the Broward Sheriff's Office to understand better the jail discharge process. We have met already with the state attorney's office to address issues regarding repeat offenders, and some of this is already being implemented by the homeless outreach team. We are convening with local municipalities to discuss jail discharge process for homeless populations and also just to speak in general about homelessness. So we have convened with the City of Hollywood and the City of Pompano Beach as well. And PD is advocating to the state legislature for law enforcement public safety tools regarding mental health and substance abuse treatment funding. And that's it.
Hey, thank you. Anyone have any questions before I ask questions? Vice Mayor?
No questions at this point, but I want to thank you for this presentation, very detailed, and it answers, I believe, questions that even our community has, and this is explaining what our efforts are as from the city to address our homelessness. So thank you, and to all of those who put this together. Thank you.
Great. Any other comments or questions?
Mayor, I would like to also echo those comments from the Vice Mayor and say thank you. I think what Fort Lauderdale is doing, this is a tough nut to crack. Look what's happening all around the nation. Thank goodness that we are nowhere near what is happening all around the nation, and we have to make sure that that is the case. But I think that when you look at this presentation and you see just how well connected it is to all of the available opportunities that we have to tap into to make sure that we're doing all we can, and all of the work that we do with the other agencies, also in coordination with the county, I really think that it's an amazing effort, and we have to continue because this is an issue that's never, I think, going to ever go away. But we have to stay ahead of it. And I just want to say thank you. You know, recently I was a bit taken aback by a resident who wrote a letter to the editor in the newspaper criticizing our city's efforts as, quote, meager, unquote. I think that our efforts are far from meager when it comes to dealing with homelessness, and I wanted to thank all of the staff, all of the homelessness task force, our first responders. Our effort is anything but meager. I think that we spend upwards of about $14 million a year on this effort, so I still would love to hear how people can think that our efforts as a city are meager. So thank you, Mayor. Again, thank you to everyone involved, and this is a great report, and it really does demonstrate how on top of this issue we are, and I say thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. We have one person signed up to speak, Paula Junkna, but before, Paula, you come up, I just want to ask a couple questions if I can.
Sure.
So, meeting with the Broward Sheriff's Office regarding jail discharge, we've been talking about that for about 2 years now. What, have you had any meetings yet? Are you scheduled to have meetings soon? What's the deal there?
Yes, so we were scheduled in December, and unfortunately they had to cancel and reschedule, and we are hoping for the end of this month to reconvene for that meeting.
So there's no scheduled
Not at
meeting
this time.
at this time. Okay. And you say you've been meeting with other local municipalities with regarding the same thing. What other local municipalities have you already met with?
We've been meeting with City of Hollywood and City of Pompano Beach.
Okay, and what kinds of discussions are you having there?
So we've been discussing the same thing of the jail process with them, accessibility to shelter beds, which is few and far between, and really also with the hospitals, the hospital discharge. So those are really the hot topics that the three of our municipalities have been coming together about.
Have you met with the hospital district to discuss discharge proceedings with them?
We have not had a formal meeting, no.
Okay, so do you plan to do that soon?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll come back to us in 90 days and report to us on your progress then?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, with regard to these hot spots that you talked about earlier in your presentation, we continue to see panhandlers at certain street corners that seem to have made it their territory again and again. We see people who have staked out the tents on the beach. We know there's been some progress in the in the Galt Ocean Mile shops. I was at a meeting there last week for one of the neighborhood associations, and they were very pleased with the work that we've been able to succeed in accomplishing there. But what's happening with our attempts to reduce panhandling? What is your strategy going forward?
So maybe someone from PD or Louisa can help, but I know that the homeless outreach team is writing notices to appear for obstruction of right-of-way, and they are coming into community court for that. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Hello, Mayor. Anthony Fajardo again. So we do have a couple of ordinances that we are trying to enforce that Lizette has alluded to. It's not panhandling, it's safety in the right-of-way, so we want to make sure that we are consistent with our terminology so we don't find ourselves...
It's folks that are walking in the middle of traffic,
Correct.
soliciting on behalf of themselves or an organization, but it's a general ordinance that we have that no one can walk in traffic seeking some sort of solicitation.
Fundamentally, that is correct. However, the NTAs that we issue and the process that we are involved in through the court system, it tends to limit what we can do. A lot of times, people are released on ROR, released on recognizances. Right. If they show up with their NTAs to community court, we try to process through that way. So we are taking steps as much as we can under the guidance of our city attorney's office to make sure that we try to implement that as best we can. We had a coordination meeting with the police department and neighbor support about 4 weeks ago to talk about that and kind of get their feedback on it. So it is something that we are moving forward with. I want to make sure that there's a realistic expectation based on how the courts have been treating these types of cases of what we'll see moving forward.
To that point, first of all, I want to applaud our city manager who has taken the initiative to communicate and work with the court system. We now are planning to have a meeting this month with the chief judge to coordinate a policy where we can now receive those who have been charged with municipal crimes in a way that will bring them into the system, will connect them to services, because just releasing the people on their own recognizance, you aren't really treating the source of homelessness. You're just attacking the symptoms. So, yes, so the city manager and I have been working with the court system and Judge Tudor, and before the end of this month, hopefully we'll have some kind of program in mind that will assist your efforts that right now seem very frustrating, especially to law enforcement, to be able to find a path to help folks out of homelessness by working with the court system and connecting them to social services. So we'll let you know when, get you involved with that as well. Finally, if a person comes to me and says, gee, I really want to volunteer, I want to be part of this effort, I might even want to make a financial contribution. Do we have opportunities for people to do that within the city system, or should I refer them to places like Hope South Florida or any other, SunServe or any of the other agencies, nonprofits that work on trying to find places for homeless people?
I think it depends on what they would like to do. Probably a good first step is just refer them to neighbor support. I think if it's something, the volunteerism that they would like to do can help in neighbor support, I don't think Louisa and her team would turn it down. Mm-hmm. However, depending on what the breadth and scope is of what they're asking, we might be able to direct them towards other resources that could help in that regard. As far as a financial contribution to the city, I don't think we've ever done that, but we could look into what that would look like and how that would work.
Okay. All right, great.
Also, just wanted to mention that the state is changing the regulation on bonding. I think we see that on January 9th, and maybe today. I'm not sure what the actual date is. So that we don't know the full impact of what that will be as well. And what that fundamentally boils down to is when someone's released on recognizance, there is no bond in that situation. The state's putting a minimum bond amount.
Yeah, I think if probably we could ask the police chief to chime in. I think that started January 1st.
Okay.
Can you all confirm? Yes, so that started January 1st. So we should see an impact as far as, and before they were just released on reconnaissance. now there's a bond requirement, and that should at least
So there's a minimum bond requirement now?
correct. There's a schedule by the state, and that started January 1st.
And I think, Mayor, what I would like to say, just for the record, we're not trying to be punitive when it comes to
No, we're not.
individuals that need help.
I get that.
But we are really seeing a slide in the wrong direction until these other things get into place. So I don't want anyone out there to think that this commission or the staff is trying to do something, that is not with the best of intentions.
I think what we're trying to accomplish is to connect homeless people to social services to help get them out of homelessness.
Yes.
And whatever the reason for that situation to have been put in, for them to have confronted the situation, how do we get them out of homelessness? Whether it be employment, whether it be economic issues, whether it be addiction issues, whether it be mental health or any other reason for it. The whole point is to be able to work with an individual to help them out of their homeless condition, even if it's just housing in and of itself. So, and I think that's the goal here, trying to work with the court system to use the court as a triage in a way to connect them to the services that are available here in the county. And I want to thank the county for making such services available. I know there's often a waiting list, and I know they devote a tremendous amount of resources in this regard, but as the Commissioner Glassman said, I don't know, we just need to be ahead of the game if we can't entirely, cure it. So, so thank you, Anthony, I appreciate it. Paula, thank you for being here today. Happy New Year, Paula.
Thank you. Same to all of you. And good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. I am the chair of the newly formed Homeless Advisory Committee. We've only met a few times, but I am looking forward to working with the members. We have a diverse background, and hopefully we'll each bring a little bit to the table. I hope working together, we will help to improve our homeless situation. I want to thank Lisette, who is our liaison, and Louisa for helping us along. It is overwhelming. I suggested we start with what is most relevant, as Lisette had mentioned, and shelter is definitely number one. I can tell you there are many problems, and right now, few solutions. My hope in time, with discussions, gaining more knowledge, working with city staff, we can all come together and help our homeless situation. I hope, give us a few months and we'll come back and report to the commission what our committee has been doing.
Great. Thank you, Paula. And
thank you.
Yes, sir. Yeah, come on up. Thank you, and thank you for helping to spearhead this effort, helping to form this committee, and really thank you for your heart and being so devoted to this. So thank you so much.
Thank you all.
You're welcome. Ted, you want to share a few words with us?
Yeah. Yes, I do, as a matter of fact. For one thing, thank you, Commissioner Glassman, on what you said about the preservation and keeping it. I'm very involved in historic preservation. I go to the planning and zoning trying to keep the, everything that we can, save parts of the city, especially the trees on Las Olas also. But, I see this presentation that was given here. You give the same presentation every year. You just change the date, the year. Oh, this is the 2024 one. It sounded just like the 2023 one and the 2022 one. But you know what? I ride buses. I ride my bike. I'm ground level. I was at the bus terminal this morning on my way to the DRC meeting. I see the same exact people out there for years. I don't see anything done. I didn't pass one bus stop, covered bus stop, that didn't have somebody not just sitting in there or staying in there, but living in there. and the entire way down. So now we're going to address, we're going to count. Let's have a survey. Let's have a study. We're going to identify. We're going to get a strategic plan. We're going to identify hot spots. We're going to put them all in a pit. I'm not sure what that meant, but I don't hear actually anything that is going to be done. I don't hear anything about housing that's going to be available. We're going to open up this. There's no, on this street, we have this opening up very soon. I ride around. You know what? I live near Broward General Hospital. They have the old Ronald McDonald House in there that's been empty for a while. There's 24 apartments in there, just sitting there empty for years. We can renovate that, get that as part of a program. But I see just these same, I have names for them. We got the tennis lady guy. We have the guy in green. We have the handsome homeless, because it's the same ones all the time. And golly, boy, we're good at telling what we're going to do and having a study and a study for the study. Sounds like the bridge or tunnel thing with a study for the study for the study. But, I'm sorry. I don't just see a lot done. And like I said, I'm on public transportation. I'm on the street. This sounds like the same exact presentation when the one in City Hall. When that before the flood, and it's the same one recycled. I would just love if I see actual plans. Here's where they're going to build. Here's what we're doing, instead of just identifying and talking and handing out a sandwich. That's. I'm sorry, but. God bless the people that are helping, that are trying, but we need to actually start doing something instead of just talking about doing something. That's my opinion. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. All right. Moving. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this subject? Yes, Mr. City Manager.
I just wanted to add that something that we wanted to note is the additional improvements that you all approved. You all approved additional funding for more task force and also for 7-day coverage of the HOT team, which is the homeless outreach team.
Have we been able to fill those police positions yet?
I'd like to ask the chief, any
Chief?
progress on that? Those are substantive investments.
This commission made that commitment.
Correct.
And I hear Mr. I hear, Ted's frustration is, I think we all share that, but I also know that it's not going to happen overnight.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. So as it relates to those 3 hot positions, we have 3 currently filled now. You guys approved 3 additional. As of February 18th, we have 8 officers that should be clearing their training as long as they pass everything. With the chief's approval, that's when we'll make the effort to transfer those 3 positions, or fill those 3 positions that have been approved for the homeless outreach team.
So let's, Mr. Ansara brings up a point. We see some of the same folks on the streets, same intersections, same bus benches, day in and day out. You obviously see them too. What is our recourse in situations like that? Are our hands tied? Do we have the authority to ask them to move? Explain to the public a little bit about this so that we don't feel like nothing is being done.
No, and we have some effort. We have very limited ability, but we do have some effort. Our homeless outreach task force officers, our patrol officers consistently go out there and make contact with those people. Obviously, if they're sitting on a bus bench, they make it look as appears of like they're living at the bus bench. They can't do that. We make them take the stuff down. We make contact with them. We try to get, especially our homeless outreach officers, make every effort to try to get them the resources, to take advantage of the resources that are available to them. If we can write them, if there's a violation or that we can write an NTA for, to get them into community court, because that's where we can really press upon them taking advantage of those resources. We make every effort to do that. Obviously, we want to try to do that without actually creating an arrest, because that's not the solution. The solution is try to get them into their resources. So we do make those efforts continuously. Unfortunately, there are a lot of homeless individuals out there that just do not want to take advantage of those resources. That doesn't mean we give up on them. We continually keep following up with it, keep making every effort. I can tell you the task force, the neighbor support people are right there with us as well, constantly trying to help get these people in the homes, into apartments, and try to get them off the street.
How about the folks that are at intersections interfering with traffic? Where are we with that process? I know our hands were tied a little bit by the federal court. We've changed the ordinance. Where are we now with trying to enforce that?
So we did have the meeting, as Assistant City Manager Ferraro said. We had a meeting about 3-4 weeks ago. We put together an action plan. We're in the process of starting to implement that action plan. The action plan does require, just so as everybody understands, the first couple weeks, we're going to be making an effort to educate everybody in those intersections, regardless if they're homeless or just a general person crossing the street illegally. We're going to make every effort to do those warnings, do that way, and then once we start enforcement, the object in the directive of that action plan is to target those people that are creating those problems, either getting them in the community court or by a fine. So one option or the other will be available to anybody that's creating those obstructions in the roadway.
Okay. Anyone have any questions of the officer? Okay, there being none. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Moving on to business 2, debt capacity and financing flexibility presentation. Who will be making that presentation?
Linda.
Linda
I
again.
will. He is getting the slides up for me, the deck up. Just give me 1 second, please. All right, perfect. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Commissioner. I am Linda Short. I'm the Director of Finance. Today with me, I have Sergio Masvidal. He is our financial advisor with PFM Financial Advisors. He'll be assisting me with the presentation. Today, we're going to talk about the city's current debt profile and our capacity and ability to do financing in the future. Today, we're going to go over the city has a debt management policy. We're going to go over the debt management policy excerpts. We're going to go through the debt profile that we currently have, as well as some of the policy metrics, which is also known as our financial flexibility. And then additionally, I had provided appendices towards the back that talks about all of the different bonds that we have, the market conditions, and that's available for questions if you have any, but we weren't going to go through that in great detail. So let's talk about our debt management policy. The City Commission adopted a formal debt management policy back in 2017. This established basically the guidelines and the framework for us to issue bonds and management of the city's overall debt. So the policy statement, or the purpose for this, is to ensure that we finance construction or acquisition of infrastructure or other assets, or to refinance existing debt. As a part of our policy, we engage a financial team. The financial team includes a financial advisor, includes a bond counsel, and disclosure counsel. With those people that our financing team, that helps us to guide us to ensure we're getting the best rates on the market and that our documents are well prepared. The goal of this, not only, and our desire basically, is to ensure that the city maintain and improve our bond ratings. As you know, when I first started, the city had a AA and a single A rating with the two different bond agencies. Since I've been here in the past 12 years, we have now increased our ratings. We're now a AAA rated agency, and what that means is that we get the lowest interest rates we can on the market because our financials are so strong. So when it comes to issuing debt, per our debt policy, there's some legal considerations we need to have. I'm going to highlight the things that I think are the most important. Right now, whenever possible, the city should use special assessment debt, revenue debt, or self-supporting debt before issuing general obligation bonds. So special assessment debt is like we did the Los Olas undergrounding. That was a special assessment debt for general government. Revenue debt is like water and sewer, which is supported by an individual revenue structure, as well as like the stormwater system did a special assessment revenue bond for their revenue in their system. Self-supporting debt would be like a capital project that generates revenue from that debt that you issue. We don't have any of those right now, but that's something that, for instance, iShop would have been something that if we were issuing debt that generated revenue, that's something that would be a self-supporting debt. Additionally, the city, we shall not issue debt to subsidize or finance current operations. So we can't use it to pay the current year's budgeted salaries or so on and so forth. Additionally, general obligation debt should only be used to finance capital expenditures. There are a bunch of other bullets here that you guys can read, but I just wanted to highlight those 3 important ones. Now, when it comes to the city's financial flexibility, I'm going to turn it over to Sergio Masvidal to cover the city's current debt profile and what our policy metrics allows and what our financial flexibility is. Sergio?
Thank you, Linda. Good afternoon, Commissioners, Mr. Mayor. Pleasure to see you all again. Happy New Year. So as Linda mentioned, I'll go through quickly your financial flexibility and then open the floor for any questions you might have. To start, let's take a kind of step back and just contextual picture of the city's overall debt portfolio, the bond portfolio as it stands now. There's about 7 types of unique securities that you have, ranging from general obligation bonds all the way to the water and sewer and SRF loans. The total portfolio is about $1.4 billion outstanding. $400 million of that is within the general fund, general obligation, special obligation. About $1 billion of that is within the department or enterprise funds, water and sewer, stormwater. And I would even say, 50% of water and sewer, which is the largest component here, is related to the newest water treatment plant financing that was completed last year. As Linda mentioned, I also want to highlight the credit ratings that the city should be very proud of. AAA ratings, really across the board in every category. Your general obligation bonds are AAA, special obligation bonds have a AAA, your stormwater achieved a AAA as well, and that was a first-time brand new credit that we brought to market last year. Water and sewer is a AA+, which is the second highest credit category you can be in before reaching AAA.
Why is that just AA+ and not AAA?
Good question, Mr. Mayor. It's really a basket of items that the rating agencies look at. So in addition to the financial metrics, your financial performance, which is extremely healthy, they also look at the level of outstanding debt, as well as what they anticipate as future capital needs that the city might have to issue. It absolutely could be, when we look at our own internal credit rating model, it's on the cusp. It's very close to a AAA. AA+, again, is just one notch below that.
I understand that, but considering that water and sewer has a dedicated repayment source, I mean, that should have been the most solid of all ratings. Why did that slip down into AA+?
Okay. Again, I'll note that it didn't slip. So AA+ was actually, I believe, ticked up from last time. So
it was
an improvement, yes.
Okay.
But you are hitting on something that we have long said to the industry, and I think the investors on Wall Street, when you think about the large bond buyers, they understand that water and sewer credit is an essential service. One of the strongest credits out there for any municipality. It needs water. Basically, that product needs to be delivered to residents. It's always going to be there. Investors see it that way. They're willing to pay up in terms of a lower interest rate. The credit agencies, again, take several different factors, and we can go through those if you'd like, kind of a really deep dive into the credit analysis. But it takes into account not only kind of the financial performance, but also anticipated capital needs and whether that fits within their model as to debt outstanding versus operating expenses, and all those sorts of considerations. I know it's kind of a circular answer for you. I really, unless we went into a deep dive, which I'm happy to do, I don't think I could answer that on the floor for you right now.
It's okay.
Great questions, though. Thank you. On the next slide, Linda was speaking to the debt policy. One of the things within your debt policy that we look at are the financial metrics that must be met in order to issue new debt. And this is where we talk about financial flexibility. One of those metrics is based on the total taxable value of the city, which is extremely healthy. You can see, and I also want to mention, your debt policy has limits as well as targets. Targets being more restrictive than the limits because you self-impose those targets, and that's really what helps you achieve those extremely high credit ratings. So in terms of your total taxable value, you can see this metric requires, this is just for governmental general fund debt, Less than 4% is your limit of total taxable value. That would equate to about 2.1 billion of outstanding bonds. You're currently at, as I mentioned earlier, 400 million. Your target is more restrictive than that. Again, a lower target gives you more credit rating worthiness, and that's 1.6 billion. But you can see you're well below that, so you have plenty of flexibility when you look at your general fund governmental credits. Items C and D really relate to revenue credits, and you look at debt service coverage and your additional bonds test. Moving to the next slide. Another measure that we look at is debt service as a percentage of operating expenses, and that's probably more relevant to you all than the total taxable value. So in other words, every year you're paying principal and interest on these bonds. What percentage of that is it of your entire expense portfolio or your annual operating expenses? You can see here your debt limit is 20% of operating expenses. Your target is somewhere in the 10 to 15% range. We calculated based on the 2024 budget and the annual debt service. You can see in the box below, all the way on the left, your percentage limit right now your percentage right now is 9.13%. Again, below that target range and well below the debt limit. We also wanted to account for known capital expenditures that will be coming in the future, which include the Parks and Recreation GO bonds that were already approved by voter referendum. There's about 70 million still to be issued there. As well as the public safety police building, about 45 million that needs to be issued to complete that project. Adding both of those items that we know needed to be funded in the next couple of years brings that percentage up to 10.4%. Again, still well within that target range that you have of 10 to 15%. We wanted to take it on the next slide one step further, just to show an indication as to if you wanted to go out for referendum, for example, if you had additional capital projects that you wanted to fund, additional infrastructure investments you wanted to make, how would that look in terms of the debt targets? And again, we looked at a range from 100 million all the way to 400 million of new general obligation bonds. We kept the governmental expenditures static at the 2024 budget levels, so I think these numbers are conservative, if anything. But you can see, even with those known capital expenditures, if you issued another 100 million of GO bonds that are not on the table right now, that brings your percentage to about 11.5%. If you went all the way to 400 million, that is what takes you about to your target limit, which into that 10 to 15% range. You're just below that at 14.6%. So that's really a look at your general governmental portfolio, what future flexibility you have, which is very robust. I'll spend just 1 second talking about, we won't go through all the appendices, but just 1 second talking about other capital needs that you do have in the, oh, one more, okay.
Oh, he took it out, that's okay.
No worries, I can speak to it. Other capital needs that you will have within your water and sewer department, as well as the stormwater fund. As you know, those capital plans are robust. They'll need to issue additional debt in the future. Those don't count towards your governmental metrics. Those have their own separate metrics within the bond covenants. So with that, let's turn it back to Linda.
Yeah, so just a couple of things. One thing that is not included in this is City Hall. We weren't sure exactly what that number would be, so when you look at the numbers and look at our financial flexibility between the 100, 200 to the 400 million, we have to carve out some money for City Hall, whatever that cost would be. And then also I want to stand corrected, Mr. Mayor. You asked me how much we had in outstanding bonds for the pension obligation. I told you 186 is actually 136, so even better than I projected. So we've paid off 200 million of that we'd issued back in 2012. Okay? Any questions?
I thought it was lower than 186, but...
well, thanks for not correcting me.
Okay.
Any questions?
Questions? Okay, there being none?
I do have a question.
Sorry. Go ahead.
See how to phrase this. What is our overall bond debt?
That was provided here. Okay. I'll show you the slide.
The total of everything?
Yep, total was right there. So right now we have 1.45 million.
It's on
billion,
page 8.
Sorry.
Page 8.
Okay.
Yeah, 1.45 billion is the total outstanding debt as of October 1st of this year. Okay. That includes, like he said, 395 million in general obligation debt or general government debt, and about $1 billion in enterprise debt. This includes, like he said, the water plant that we just issued of $500+ million.
And what does that look like for every household?
The debt, so the revenue debt is covered. The stormwater and the water and sewer fund is covered by rates. So the assessment that goes on a tax bill is already there, is built in, and the water rates includes the expenses for the water system. As it comes to the general obligation debt, that is a debt millage that's already added to the homeowner's bill, and I can get that information from the budget book for you and send it to you if you want to know what that is, the debt millage for it. The rest of it is covered by non-ad valorem revenue, and that's not a direct impact to homeowners. It comes from general government revenue that's in the general fund. The non-ad valorem state shared revenues and so on and so forth, that's not necessarily a direct impact to homeowners.
Okay. All right. So what I'm looking for, thank you, if you can share that with me, because want to know direct impact versus the non-impact.
Gotcha. No problem. I can send that to you. Okay.
And I think the next question that needs to be asked is there room on the credit card to be able to fund other capital expenses? And today you said there is.
There is.
Yeah, okay.
Based upon our debt policy, there is, yes.
Question, if I can.
Go ahead.
Yes.
I look at stormwater, 88 million. I know that we had a $200 million, the project, another 500 that we're proposing. 88, where does the 200 fit in?
Sure. So if you look at it, I think it's very high, it's hidden very well. So the city, on top of the $88 million in bonds, we received a loan from WIFIA to subsidize the rest, and it's a line of credit in a way of a loan, and only when we draw do we have to pay. It's not included in there yet because we have not drawn any funds from it, but we got a WIFIA loan to subsidize the additional $200 million. We got $119 million from WIFIA, but it's not included here yet because we have not drawn on the funds.
So we have debt that's not included in the bonds, like loans in addition to the debt.
We have potential loans that will be added if we draw, yes, sir.
And we have to figure that into our capacity.
Well, when it comes to the stormwater, it's already included in the rate structure. And if, for instance, we don't use the WIFIA loan, we have the ability to go out and actually issue bonds for it. We just have not done that yet.
Okay. How about Parks bonds? Where does that show up in here?
Parks bonds are not in here yet because they have not been issued. But if you go to slide 10, it shows you what the $70 million in Parks bonds would be, which is an additional $5 million in debt service costs for the $70 million in Parks bonds.
Okay,
That's
so
still outside.
The difference between the $200 million and the $70 million, and also police headquarters, it's 145 versus 45 million. The rest of it is short-term loan? Or
No, the rest of it is already included. So in the general obligation debt here on slide 8, you will see the Parks bonds that haven't been issued, which is an $80 million in 2020, another $60 million, and the balance is the 70 to be issued at a future date whenever Parks and Rec is ready for the additional funding. The $100 million is already included in here for the police station. As you know, it ran short, so we did a line of credit to try and fill the shortfall. The line of credit, though, is just temporary financing. Once the building is complete and we know the exact cost for that project, we will convert that line of credit to a hard loan, and we're estimating that at $45 million, which was what the line of credit was for.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you so much. Really
All right,
appreciate
thank you.
it. No one has signed up to speak. On to business 3, renew Lauderdale general obligation bond presentation. Is that kind of what you already did? Or is there more to the story, Mr. Dodd? Okay, so Linda, you've sort of discussed business 2 and business 3 together, correct?
No, I've only done business 2. Business 3 is the Renew Lauderdale, which is, that's your stuff, right?
That's mine.
Yeah, that's not, can you switch to profiles, Andres? Need the next one. Yeah.
So are we discussing business 3 right now?
Mayor and Commissioners, Alan Dodd, Public Works Director. I'll be doing Business 3, which is the renewal Lauderdale presentation.
Okay. Please proceed.
Okay, well, while they're bringing the presentation up, I'll just start with general comments. So Public Works is giving the presentation, but this was really developed in partnership with the City Manager's Office, with Transportation Mobility, OMB, Finance. A lot of the staff was involved in preparing the numbers and the presentation that we'll be giving. We put this together based on a number of comments that we have heard from various members of the Commission about how do we improve conditions of general funded infrastructure and whether we should consider using a bond to accelerate some of those type of improvements. So what we hope to achieve out of this presentation is to receive guidance from you about your desire to possibly pursue a general obligation bond, and then some type of general direction as to the amounts and the categories of funding so that we can start putting together another presentation to bring to you at the goal-setting workshop that you have later this month. So this is the basic agenda for the presentation, and I'll just go into the next slide, which is on the background. As I was saying, that we've been looking a lot at our infrastructure, and the Commission really, over the last 2 years, has taken a lot of significant steps on improving and investing in stormwater, in water and wastewater infrastructure, and really helping to make Fort Lauderdale a more resilient city as part of the infrastructure and resilience top priority that you have established. We haven't, however, been investing at the same level in roads, sidewalks, mobility infrastructure, and we have seen some degradation in those features over the past several years that has come out in less satisfaction comments that we've received from residents and businesses. So the vision that we have as we're looking at how do we focus on this area really is to create safer, more resilient future for the city by reducing the current future risks to the residents, the economy, tourism, and our overall legacy. And the way we'll do that is through the mission, which is really figuring out how do we deliver long-term solutions in the near term that produce a positive impact to the community and improve the quality of life for our residents. And really, we started to go through this and looking at a deliberate planning process that will identify what those needs may be and how do we prioritize our efforts in this endeavor. So before I start talking about specific needs or wants or projects, we put together a roadmap that talks about the overall process to proceed with the general obligation bond program. What we'll be doing is presenting our initial assessment as to what could be part of that, and then looking for feedback from you as to next steps to proceed. Over the next 2 months, we'll be refining the assessment, developing an objective selection process, and then determine how we will prioritize projects that would go to a general obligation referendum in November. In order to go on that November ballot, the Commission would have to approve the bond language in June of this year. So that gives us about 5 months to decide what it would be that we'd be proposing to our residents. And then if approved in November, we would come back in December in order to discuss how we would implement a program to enact those improvements. So as I go through the projects and the needs that we're talking about, we didn't want to do this in an ad hoc fashion, so we went back to our basic planning documents, master plans, studies, assessments, strategic documents that quantify and assess what our needs are in an objective way. And I will break it down into these 5 categories. And for each, we'll talk about what we hope to achieve along with the projected cost if we were to fully implement the improvements that would be determined. So I'll start with roads. The city has 564 miles of roadways with 178 miles that are in a pavement condition index below 70. And that's the cutoff between what's considered a fair and a satisfactory condition. The numbers are based on a 2019 assessment that we completed. The objective would be to get all roads up to at least a satisfactory condition while also addressing ADA and safety concerns. We want to develop standards for road raising, which is an issue in some parts of the city where they're extremely vulnerable to flooding and inundation during king tides. The total projected cost that we have for this category is $106 million. However, that's just for repair and maintenance of the existing roadways. It does not include anything for road raising projects. And a lot of that would be determined once we establish exactly what the city's policies are for road raising. And we'll be looking at that in the workshop that we have in March. The breakdown of the road segments and the cost on it is shown on this slide and has a total cost of about $86 million when you look at the different categories of roads based on the conditions. We also included in here $20 million to provide a facility that would house the road services team and stormwater utilities team at Plant A, which currently both do not have facilities that working out of. They are basically working out of ad hoc available space that we do have, but they don't have a permanent facility for those teams. That raises the total cost to $106 million. And the current funding that we have within this category is just a little under $2 million that we receive annually. Switching over to sidewalks, we have 550 miles of sidewalks with 106 miles in need of repairs based on a 2015 Atkins study. The objective would be to eliminate all damaged sidewalks while improving connectivity and ADA compliance issues. And the total cost we associate with this is $23 million.
So this is just repair?
This is repair of existing sidewalks, not new sidewalks.
Okay.
How much sidewalks did you say we had?
We have 550 miles of sidewalks at this time. So as we look more into the numbers on it, in the past 5 years, we've replaced 11.8 miles of sidewalks at an investment of $2.9 million. And the funding has increased significantly over the past few years in the 2024 budget in particular. However, we paid out $1.3 million last year in trip and fall claims, which takes away from the funding that we have available. So we do have a breakdown of the $23 million based on the type of cracks and the deficiencies that are in with the total cost of $23 million. Okay, waterfront infrastructure is something where we put together a couple different categories.
Colonel, could you go back to the slide? I know you talked about it. I think it's on page 11. $23 million, that's just to maintain what we have. It's not adding, it's just maintaining what we have.
That is correct, Commissioner. I will be talking about new sidewalks in the mobility section that's coming up in another 3 or 4 slides.
And that's not a yearly, that's just to all the current problems we have.
That is correct. It is the assessment of our current needs for existing sidewalks.
And 2.1 mil per year is what's advocated.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so going to water. This category is where we put together a number of different types of infrastructure features, seawalls, natural shorelines, dredging, and other needs associated with waterways. We have 6.5 miles of waterfront areas, and that does not include the beach, which is managed in a different way. We have 35 seawalls, with 25 of them being on our list for replacement. 399 areas
Hold on a second. What was your question?
How many miles did you say? I didn't hear that. Of waterways?
For waterfront areas that the city is responsible for, we have 6.5 miles.
Okay. Thank you.
And then we have 399 locations where we have outfalls that need tidal valves to counter sea level rise. Also within our navigable waters, we have 106 miles of canals and waterways that we are responsible for. The objective would be to reduce flooding due to vulnerabilities due to tidal flooding, maintaining navigability of the waterways, and protecting communities from impacts of water during king tides. The total projected cost within this category is $230 $36 million, and I'll break that down in the next slide. Okay, so the city has been raising seawalls in a systematic process to prevent overtopping and inundation of the roadways and the neighborhoods. The total projected cost to complete all of the city-owned seawalls that need to be replaced is $106 million. Out of the 399 locations where tidal valves are needed, we've installed 199 to date. However, out of those, 92 are more than 3 years old and are in need of replacement now just from wear and tear, with another 200 locations where we need to install tidal valves where they currently do not exist. The total cost for that is $4.4 million. And dredging of our waterways is something that we have not done in many years for navigability purposes. In 2015, we completed a study that determined that 15.6 miles of the city-owned waterways are in need of maintenance dredging. The total cost for that is $125 million. However, at this time, this is an unfunded program, and we are not doing any investments in this category.
May I ask a question on that?
Yes.
Waterway dredging, does that include all the canals and the smaller tributaries connecting to the main canals, or is this just the intercoastal and the New River and places like that?
No, this is all those smaller waterways that go in through Las Olas Isles area, going up into Coral Ridge, the ones that we are responsible for maintaining.
All right, so as you know, there was conversation regarding the smaller waterways that went into the neighborhoods, and those neighborhoods protested, saying, they don't want it done. Was that because they don't need to be done, or is it because they didn't want to be assessed, or was it a combination? Do you recall?
I believe they all believe it should be done. However, the program at that time was pushing for a special assessment of waterfront properties, and that was not looked upon favorably by any of the residents. And ultimately, the commission decided to not move forward with that program.
Okay. So this 125 million would include a program that was already contemplated and rejected by the neighbors.
That is correct, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question regarding the seawalls. On this slide here on 14, it says 35 seawalls, 4.41 miles, 25 seawalls need replacement. On page 6, or slide 6, it indicates that 25 need repair. So is it repair or replacement?
Vice Mayor, it is replacement. It should have been corrected on slide number 6, the earlier slide.
Okay, so it is replacement.
That is correct, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll now move to bridges. The city owns 53 bridges. These are inspected annually by the Florida Department of Transportation. Out of these, 33 are a single point of ingress or egress to neighborhoods, which presents a significant risk if any of them should fail and have to be shut down. The objective would be to reduce the risk associated with any of the bridges while improving them to counter saltwater impacts and improving pedestrian and multimodal access. The total cost for this category is $92 million. We'll be completing the bridge master plan in the next 2 months, but from the assessment of the 33 single egress bridges, it shows that 22 of them will need to be replaced over the next 20 years, and 3 are rehabilitated. And the master plan does give us a prioritization for how those should be done over the 20-year period. Okay, the next category is focused more on the mobility area. And as I said, that we do have 550 miles of sidewalks, along with several signature projects that Transportation and Mobility has been working on to enhance mobility within neighborhoods. The objective would be to advance those critical projects to improve sidewalk connectivity as identified in the gap analysis that TAM is working on, and implement traffic calming measures to improve public safety. The total estimated cost is $274 million. So the gap analysis identified 300 miles of new sidewalks that are needed and could be installed with a projected cost of $165 million. We also identified approximately $30 million for additional traffic calming measures, $4 million for traffic operational improvements, and $75 million for the signature projects that are on the left part of the slide. So this slide captures the total needs that we identified as part of this process, which totals approximately $731 million. And we do know that asking for $700 million at one time is not realistic, but we do hope you would consider what type of general obligation bond you would be willing to support, what categories you would want to fund, or if any, and to what level you would be comfortable with putting more investments into these categories. So to help with the decision, Finance already talked about our capacity for $100 to $400 million of additional debt. And what this slide shows is for a average home of a little over $500,000, how much that additional cost would be for them on their annual tax bills. And you see it ranges anywhere from $61 to $266 a year, depending on whether they're homesteaded or not homesteaded. And these are general numbers and would probably change a little bit based on the interest rates and other factors when we do go forward to secure the bond funding. So I won't go over everything on this slide, but as we were talking about how do you put together a program, we did talk about through a lot of other factors that would affect our ability to implement it over the short term. And it does require a very unified approach among the entire staff, a lot of engagement with neighborhoods, and a lot of work to make sure that we're doing it as efficiently and effectively as possible. We also looked at funding needs to maintain the infrastructure after we get it up to an acceptable level, and this would help us to guide our future budget development process and how much we want to do for annual maintenance requirements to go along with the infrastructure areas. Along with this, we threw in two other areas to consider funding. The first one is focused on how do we develop resilient roadway standards, looking primarily at road raising, changing some of our city standards, and improving the design standards that we would use for our roadways moving forward. The second piece is a mobility citywide master plan, and both of these we're saying we could put about $1 million into in order to develop those new city standards. So this concludes the presentation, and as I said, what we'd really be hoping to get from the Commission at this time is some direction as we're moving into that goal-setting meeting that we have coming up about if you would like us to move forward, what type of improvements you would like us to prioritize, target amounts, so then we can get a little bit more into the details and start to put together a package to present to you. And with that, I conclude my presentation.
Great, thank you. No one has signed up to speak, but can I just ask a couple questions? This is not anticipated to be, even if we had the $800 million, we're not planning to do that all in 1 year. This is a long-term objectives, correct?
That is absolutely correct, Mayor. Okay. We do not have the ability to execute all of this at one time.
Right. Even if you had the money, the resources, the personnel, all of that, it takes time and planning and all that. So, okay, so I don't want the public to think like, this would be accomplished in 1 year even if we had the money. Number two, aren't there funding sources other than the ones you just described through the MPO, through the county 1 cent sales tax? Or even with the U.S. Department of Transportation, are there opportunities for augmenting these funding sources that you described that we could tap into to try to alleviate the tax burden?
Yes, absolutely. And in the past year, we have applied for grants for bridges, for sidewalks, for roadways, seawalls. We look at a lot of different opportunities to get other funding to augment what we have within our budget.
And so, I mean, are we looking at maybe 20%, 40%? I mean, a reduction if we could estimate what kinds of funds are available, or is that too speculative?
Mayor,
Greg,
I would not want to present a number.
So, if I may, Mayor.
Yeah, Greg.
So that depends on a couple of things. Number one, the political appetite at the federal level, state level,
and county level.
Right. Yes, and a lot of times what some of these grant applications they look at is they look at shovel ready. They look at what plans we have in place, master plans. Do they also have regional impact? So I think some of the first investments will be to gather a holistic approach, which is what Director Dodd has provided, is an idea of how far or how much it needs maintenance and repair. And so it's hard to forecast that in a 10-year outlook, if you will. But certainly, I think that our track record, and as you saw in the prior presentation, you have AAA, AA+. Those are very good aspects that allow the city to look forward to better applying and better be considered for earning some of those grants.
So those would be the criteria for asking for money. I just wanted to know, to what extent are these types of programs eligible for funding? And what you're, I guess, reading between the lines, yes, there are programs that are available for which we could apply that would allow us to reduce the reliance on the taxpayer or the ratepayer when trying to fund these projects, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Because otherwise I'm walking away with total heartburn from all of this. So. Okay, anyone else have any questions? Vice Mayor, do you have any thoughts?
Thoughts, yes, I have any thoughts about this. I'm still at this question. I'm trying to figure out if we can get an answer. In regards to bonds, how many bonds are we obligated to currently? What is that number that we have? Is it?
I think Linda.
If someone can answer that. And what my concern is, understanding the need, not excluding the need that we have, but do we want to continue stretching our debt flexibility that's being said? We have this room, but do we want to keep getting close to that?
Question. It's a good question.
To that number where we are almost tapped out of our budget?
Our capacity?
Our capacity.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my concern.
That's something we can talk about at our goal setting session. I think it's a really good question, because while we may have more money on our credit card available, do we want to max it out?
Exactly.
Right.
That's where I'm going.
Right.
Okay.
So I think page 8 is the profile overview. Is that?
That is correct.
Right.
Yes. So this right now, as of October 1st, this includes the water and sewer bonds that were issued in October. Our current total citywide debt is $1.4 billion. This does not include the $45 million line of credit because it's not a hard bond, and it's just a line, and we have not drawn any funds from it. And it does not include the $119 million in the Whitfield loan that we haven't drawn from. So if you add those two together, that's another $160 million, $170 million to add to it. So we'll be at basically $1.6 billion.
Okay. And our capacity.
I understand that. But what I want to know, I'm just layman out in the community. How many bonds are we obligated to? Not the dollar. Is it 10 credit cards? Or is it
multiple credit cards?
The number of bonds that we have?
Yes.
Oh.
Multiple.
Actually, can you do me a favor?
That's what I'm
Andres,
trying to get.
It's in here. It's in the appendix side.
Okay.
If you can bring up the appendices for me, please, which is the second exhibit. Exhibit 2 is the appendices.
Okay.
Oh, not that one. That's Exhibit A.
That goes back to the other
There
one.
it is. Thank you. So this should have all of the city's bonds in here. Summary, oh no, there's still. All right, so on the bottom here, it tells you what we have. In water and sewer bonds, we currently have six outstanding bonds for water and sewer. We have 2 for the water plant, 1 for the enabling works, and 1 for the actual project. So there are totally 6 currently in water and sewer. State revolving loan funds, we have 3 still outstanding from state revolving loan, and this is also for the water and sewer system. For the CRA, we have 1 loan for the CRA that was taken out for the incentive projects. And so that was the water and sewer. Now I'm going to come to the general obligation debt. Oops. Stormwater, we have 2 bonds outstanding, which is, like I said, the WIFIA, which we haven't drawn on yet, and the bonds, the $88 million in actual bonds. We have the La Solasal undergrounding special assessment that we did.
That's 1, right?
That's only 1. We have 1 special obligation non-ad valorem that was done in 2011. I believe this was, I don't remember what this was for, but we still have, it was only issued for $7 million, and we have 1.7 still outstanding on that one. We have the pension obligation bonds that has $136 million. There's 1 left outstanding for that. General obligation, we have it here, where we have 6 outstanding for the general obligation bonds. And this is covered by debt millage that's issued on the tax bill.
So is there more?
Nope, that's it.
So I'm counting 20.
That could be.
Yes, I can add them up for you.
Yeah, I'm counting 20.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's something that when you break it down and itemize, it gives you a clear picture of that. My debt is I have 20 credit cards, if you want to make it layman's term.
Right.
That are all with a balance that I owe, that we, the city, owe money to.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Well, I always like increasing my credit limit on my credit cards whenever possible, so that's always an option. Just wanted to throw that out
but
there.
the other option is to tap into other government
Yes.
sources, which I think Colonel Dodd has been very helpful in working with the city manager and coming up with this presentation. First of all, it's an amazing presentation.
Yes.
All the years I've been on this commission, I've never seen a summary as complete and as thorough as this. It really helps everyone understand a snapshot of where the city now is with regard to not only its obligations, but showing the community where we're spending the money and where the money is destined. And we're finally addressing infrastructure needs to build resiliency, as you stated, in order to be able to accommodate the growth that we're now seeing in our community. So I don't know if we see this much commitment in other cities, but I know Fort Lauderdale is definitely seen as standing out in front of all the others. When I go to conferences around the state and around the country, our city is always used as an example of how important resiliency is and how important the investment is in order to reach that goal. So I think you did a great job. Thank you so much, and all of your staff. But let us continue to try to find other funding sources to be able to accommodate the needs that we have for our city.
And Mayor, of course, I echo exactly what you just said. Thank you. But I look forward to us fleshing this out a little bit more during our goal-setting workshop in January. This is vital. These are areas that, and again, I'm very proud over the last 6 years, all of the steps that the city has already taken with regards to infrastructure needs. We're nowhere near where we need to be still, and this is a great outline and a great strategic plan, but I really do look forward to figuring this out step by step at our goal-setting workshop, because I can't think of anything that's probably going to be more important than all of these items that's in the Renew Fort Lauderdale and the Fortify Lauderdale plans, and we've got to just keep going. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to business 4, presentation of Press Play Fort Lauderdale 2029, our city, our strategic plan. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, Laura will be presenting. Again, these are all topics so that you all can have available as you formulate your commission priorities in the following weeks.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Laura Reese. First, I'd like to acknowledge Erica Johnson is our Structural Innovation Manager, and she's the one who's in charge of this effort typically. She recently welcomed a baby girl on Thursday, so she's not with us, but they're both doing very well, and I'm going to try to fill in her place today and at goal setting. So on behalf of her, I'm making this presentation and the team. So the presentation today is to talk about the 5-year strategic plan. So I thought I'd start with an overview of a lot of different aspects that we talk about. So our mission, as a reminder, is we build community. Our vision is we're the city you never want to leave. The values are integrity, compassion, accountability, respect, and excellence. Our motto is we are Fort Lauderdale, or we are FTL. You'll see that hashtagged quite a bit. And our strategy is Press Play Fort Lauderdale. We're presenting the update, which is 2029 today. So this would be the third strategic plan in support of the vision plan. So we really like to align the strategic plan with the vision plan and the commission annual action plan. It's a cascade approach. So the vision is the long-term aspirational goals. The strategic plan is a 5-year chunk. And then each year you set an annual action plan that tells us what we're going to do in the next year's budget. And so this year, the big difference in what we're presenting in the strategic plan is that instead of having internal service as its own goal, we have them as guiding principles, and we'll talk about that at the end, because things like financial accountability, transparency, those things we think should be throughout all of our goal areas and not just a goal of their own. So today we're going to talk about the focus areas and goals for the upcoming 5 years. And this was developed in coordination with our executive strategy team. We hosted sessions with them. We have input from neighbor surveys. And then the past 5 years of commission annual action plans, all of that's incorporated to look to see how we need to tweak our 5-year strategic plan for the next 5 years. So today we're going to talk about our focus areas and goals. So this year what we're presenting to you is 5 focus areas and 6 goals. And they're meant to be high level and conceptual because we just adopt them every 5 years. So they need to have longevity that lasts for 5 years. So the focus areas are public safety, housing, infrastructure and resilience, public places, business growth and support. And then I'll go through the goals as we go through one at a time. So public safety has one goal area. It's to be a safe community that is proactive and responsive to risks. So that's a pretty broad goal. Under that, we've worked with our public safety staff to develop some key performance metrics. And we measure way more than this in each area. These are just the ones that we think will align with the strategic plan. And we're looking for input from you on if you'd like to see additional things measured to gauge our success in the next 5 years. So the key performance measures that we developed were crime rate, police call time, fire rescue response times. For housing, we have one primary goal. It's to enable housing options for all income levels. So this is intended to address affordable housing, homelessness, and workforce housing. So all 3 of those are goals within the housing arena. And under that, we thought we'd measure, or what's suggested to be measured, is the number of individuals experiencing homelessness, number of individuals receiving housing benefits, and the number of affordable dwelling units built for those with very low to moderate income that receive city funding. And the next area is infrastructure and resilience, and there's 2 goals under this area. The first one is to be sustainable and resilient community. Under that goal, we suggest measuring primary drinking water compliance, number of water breaks per 100 miles of distribution pipe, number of failures per 100 miles of wastewater collection pipe, and the percent of citywide tree canopy coverage on public and private property. Again, we measure other things routinely, but these would be how we determine whether or not we're meeting the goals of the 5-year strategic plan. The second area under infrastructure is really focused on transportation. And so the metrics we suggest for this are the average number of riders per hour on the community shuttle, average time spent on major corridors, and installed linear feet of new bike lanes, sidewalks, and shared use paths. Excuse me. So public places has also been a primary goal of the commission year after year. A lot of times we're talking about the Parks Bond, about wanting to be a Disney-like community. So overall, the goal in this area is to build a beautiful and welcoming community. We feel like that's all-encompassing. And understanding the percent of neighbors that live within a 10-minute walk of a park is important to meeting this goal, and number of street lights installed. Lighting is a big part of how we measure the success of public places. The last area is business growth and support. And a lot of times at goal setting, we've heard from you that you want to diversify the economy beyond just being hotels, motels, and tourism. So that's a big part of this goal, as well as, supporting existing businesses. So the key performance measures that we developed in this area were assessed valuation for commercial properties, percent of tourism generated by Fort Lauderdale. So that's measuring Fort Lauderdale as it compares to all of Broward County, and the number of active retail properties. Just to wrap it up, the guiding principles that used to be the internal service cylinder, or that cylinder of excellence, or whatever we've called it over the years, is we want to make sure we're really focusing on customer service. How are we treating our neighbors? Are we being responsive to their needs? Fiscal responsibility, every public dollar is precious, and we want to make sure we're spending it in the right way and making sure we're accountable for that. Innovation, doing more with less, doing things in an innovative way. Technology adaptation, and inclusivity. With that, do you have any questions or comments? We can talk more about this at goal setting if you had more.
That's it?
Yeah, we're asking you to adopt this evening. So if there's anything you'd like incorporated or tweaked, we can do that. We can also, after the fact and goal setting, talk about it more if you'd like. We just wanted a chance to present before you had your goal setting session.
All right, so these are just 30,000-foot perspectives on goals, and at our goal setting session, we'd want to flesh out some of these topics and see exactly, each commissioner who knows best about their district will bring to the table specific ideas that they hear from their community leaders, and hopefully we'll be able to come up with some generalized not using the guiding principles, come up with some strategies as we now put together a budget for next year. What are we going to include in those budgets? And I think the 2029, I hope to be on this earth, let alone, I don't expect to be on the commission by then, but these are certainly important goals that we need to achieve. So anyone have any comments or questions? We're all done? Okay, thank you so much,
Thank
Laura.
you.
Okay, so moving right along, commission reports. So Commissioner Herbst, by the way, Commissioner Herbst is not attending this afternoon. He had a death in his family, so he has to be excused, which is why he's absent this afternoon. I understand he might be here this evening, so but he will not be presenting a report this afternoon. Vice Mayor.
Good afternoon to everyone, and again, Happy New Year, and also to John and his family, sending our condolences and sympathy during this time of his bereavement. Want to share just from beginning of the year, since we've been able to begin to say 2024, right? So I had a great opportunity on January the 4th to meet with Sharon Woodfield. She is a representative of the Old Dillard Museum. This year, 2024, they are celebrating 100 years of the Dillard Educational Institution. In 1924, it was deemed the colored school, and now we know it to be Dillard High School in our city. And they are excited about putting on a 3-day extravaganza, opportunities to offer. They would like to do a parade. They want to do a celebration. They want to have a day that will invite the community out as they celebrate. They're looking to do this in April. So I had a great conversation with them, and I will be have an opportunity to sit with Greg in the very near future to talk about the plans they would like to see. But just going back to that heritage and legacy and the opportunity to make sure that our history is known and
Embrace our
embraced and
past.
remembered.
Embrace our
Exactly.
past.
Exactly. And the old Dillard Museum, it actually sits on the property of Walker Elementary, and it's under the umbrella of the school board as well. But the museum is an amazing opportunity for all of us in this city and those who come to visit to take a moment, take an afternoon to go over and just enjoy the exhibit overall. They have there a exhibit for Cannonball Adderley, renowned jazz saxophonist. They have a room. He was actually a band director at Dillard High School. And Mr. Adderley, he's well known for his jazz contribution internationally as well. There is a exhibit of what the classroom looked like in those early years here in Fort Lauderdale, and as well as a room that gives highlight and give reverence to those from Dillard High School who have went on to be professional athletes that have given contributions to both NFL and the NBA. So we have a lot of history here that we want to share. So excited to have had that conversation with the old Dillard Museum, and excited with the opportunity for us as a city to embrace this and highlight this. Also had an opportunity to, going back a little bit, I'm sorry, I want to thank the FOP, the fire department, and other entities that reached out to our city, our district, in regards to Christmas gifts for some of the neighbors in our community that were in need. And it was a days of excitement. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to participate. In the interim, I was sick, and also my husband's sister passed away. So I was doing the holiday, and things were, life was a little different, but I wasn't able to be hands-on. But with the police chief, with the chief of the fire chief, in constant contact with what was going on and what was being done in the district. So I do want to thank everyone who reached out to our community. We had some nonprofits that called and wanted to also give gifts to some of those neighbors in need in our community. So I would like to say thank you for that. I did have an opportunity as well to have a conversation with Belvit Jordan, and also Belvit Jordan is the founder of Black Genius in Flight, and they are an organization that have a desire to introduce and share and give knowledge of the opportunity of careers in aviation. And it's my understanding that she has also been in contact with Rufus at our Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport. And the conversation was one where we would have an opportunity to just bring knowledge and opportunity about the aviation industry and what is available as far as careers from from mechanics to pilots. So the conversation was very enlightening, and that's what I want to share today.
Well,
And-
we
yes.
have that program with the Atlantic Institute, right?
Yes.
And in fact, I just inquired about that last weekend. We're always over enrolled. There's a waiting list to get in there,
Yes.
all about aviation, from mechanics to pilots.
Yes.
So to connect those folks with them would be important, because I think we made that decision just a few years ago, how important it was to educate especially kids that don't want to go to college, learn liberal arts and French and all those things that, they want to learn a hands-on kind of job. And,
Yes.
and I think that our program with the Atlantic Institute has been very successful in that
Yes,
regard.
Yes, and I agree the collaboration is needed, and just expanding that opportunity where everyone in the city knows that this is here. And, I'm always ringing the same bell because it's such a fact. And unfortunately, the way that we disseminate information, it doesn't necessarily get throughout the whole city. So with this, we are excited to have had this conversation, and then to look forward to collaboration where we can make this citywide as well.
Great.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you so
much.
much. Thank you. Commissioner Glassman.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First of all, again, happy and a healthy new year to all of my colleagues, everyone here and everyone watching and in the city for sure. And I, too, would like to echo my condolences to Commissioner Herbst and also to you, Vice Mayor. I'm so sorry about the loss of your sister-in-law. Hope you guys are doing okay every day. It was a very interesting time over the holidays. I want to say that right after we broke, we did have, I think Flagler Village Civic Association, Mayor, was probably the last holiday neighborhood association party of all of them, and there might have been about 40 of them, but it was great. Again, that neighborhood coming together with their new leadership as well. Monday, January 8th, that was yesterday, I guess. I did some judging of some artwork over at the Broward County Main Library for Arts United, which is going to be celebrating its 25th anniversary. I can't believe it because I remember when it was first created. That's our city's, actually one of our communities' probably first LGBTQ plus centric arts organizations. They have a great exhibit on the 6th floor of the main library. The reception for that and to announce the winners will be tomorrow evening. And that's at 6:30. Of course, we have the MLK Parade coming up on Monday, January 15th. On January 16th, we will have our second Sunrise Lane project meeting held at the Sonesta Hotel. We've already had our first meeting, so this will be a follow-up. It was a great, great meeting. I want to thank Transportation and Mobility for putting that all together. I look forward to our second meeting to move forward with all of the input that we had from the stakeholders at the first meeting. Also on Tuesday the 16th, we have the Gateway Intersection virtual meeting with FDOT. Also, I'll be working, I don't know if any of you have heard of Joseph Gormley. What an interesting story this artist has. He's actually right now the head custodian at Bayview Elementary School, but really such an incredibly talented artist. And he's been doing a series of Leo Messi portraits where folks all contribute with like a little brushstroke or something to the painting. He does all of this for charity. He's raised over $300,000 for local organizations. His goal is $1 million, and Leo Messi has signed some of the work as well. It's great. If you want to check him out on Facebook, again, his name is Joseph Gormley. Quite an interesting story, and I look forward to adding, trust me, I'm happy that I'm just going to be adding a brushstroke to this, because if I did any more, it would really probably ruin the artwork. I don't have much of a visual art talent, but I think I could probably fit in a brushstroke somewhere along the lines. Wednesday, January 17th, Flagler Village Civic Association will have its meeting. That is with its brand new board of directors. I do want to thank those that are leaving that board of directors. Leanne Barber was the president and others that are now going to hopefully be giving their expertise in a transition as we have a brand new president and board for the Flagler Village Civic Association. Thursday, January 18th, Central Beach Alliance meeting. Friday, January 19th, we have a groundbreaking for the water treatment plant at Prospect Lake. I'm really looking forward to that. And of course, on the 19th, we also have our commission's prioritization workshop. Just a couple of comments. City Manager Greg, are we involved at all, or have we analyzed or been a part of the discussion with regards to the school board's attempt to have its own police force and how that would impact us? But have we been at the table at all, or have we been participating in that conversation that I've been reading about so much?
So they've had discussions, but they have not asked us for any feedback. If you would like, as a group, you all can certainly discuss and bring forward unified communication to that board. We can certainly present some facts and figures of what the current operations is today. The police department will be glad to assist with that. And then maybe perhaps that's something you all would like to, as a board, have a unified communication to send to the school board.
I asked because I think they're meeting to discuss it today. I don't know what exactly is happening, but I've been asked about that, and I don't have enough information. I don't have enough facts to really weigh in, although I've seen some other cities have weighed in. Some other mayors have weighed in.
Yeah, in fact, I've been asked to send a letter, but I felt it was inappropriate because, number one, we have not discussed it amongst ourselves.
Right.
And number two, we don't have all the information.
Right.
I hear a lot of assertions that are being made in some of the letters. I've read a number of the letters from the other commissioners and other mayors, and they make some really good points, but I don't know the backup information. And I think from our own police department, we should hear what the options are. So, a good point that you raise. I don't think today's meeting at the school board is the end of the discussion.
Right.
But maybe at our next meeting, we could ask our police department to give us a presentation so that we have a better understanding, and then I can write a letter at the behest of this commission as to what our position is with regard to school resource officers.
And I agree, and I think it is worth us being educated a bit more on this. And I see the city manager has his hand raised, so I think he's trying to weigh in.
Yes,
here.
Greg.
So the city clerk just advised me about that the Broward School Board rejected the proposal for a new district police force. That just happened right now. So you certainly have all that ample time to discuss it.
Okay, so they've not moved forward with their own police department.
Okay, is that a dead issue then for them? Are they not going to continue even talking about it? They just said, no, we're not interested?
We will find out more.
Okay, yeah, keep us
But
posted.
certainly it gives you all the opportunity to hear our current operations and formulate together a discussion with sentiment to the school board.
Right. That would be great, because I think even if they do not move forward, it would be nice for us to have a real, firm grip on what it is exactly that we do and what those costs are and what we provide for the school board. I think that would be helpful just for us to have that knowledge.
Yeah, we're probably going to be able to bring something back next commission meeting if you'd like.
Okay, that's
conference.
Great.
Thank you for that. And then lastly, Mayor, if tonight we could have a couple of moment of silence items. Number one, recently we lost in our city Renee Quinn. Renee was a District 2 resident in Flagler Village, but for so many years, Renee has contributed so much to our city and our community, whether it's Riverwalk or any of the boards. She actually was currently serving as my appointee on the Noise Task Force as well. She was a friend, and I was very saddened. I did learn a while ago when she was battling these health challenges, and it was really quite sad. And it's a cliche to say gone too soon, but Renee was quite young, and it is really sad. There will be a celebration of life for Renee on Monday, February 5th at Stash in the Himmelsche District between 5 and 8 p.m. But I just wanted to mention that we lost a citizen who has contributed so much, and she is already very, 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 very missed. We also did lose a Fort Lauderdale resident, Jill DeFerran was actually an Indianapolis 500 winner and a Fort Lauderdale resident. He also died quite young of a heart attack at age 56. He was a Brazilian born in France, but lived in Fort Lauderdale. We don't have that many Indy 500 winners, maybe just one other, but I did want to also mention his passing as well. And that's it from me, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. You've been busy. Commissioner Sturman.
Brazilian born in France.
Yes.
Is France part of Brazil? Or?
Well, just certain parts.
Okay.
Just the Brazilian part.
Okay. Start out by saying my condolences, deepest condolences to Pam on your loss, as well as John. If you could hear us, I am so sorry for the loss of your brother. Also, I am grateful that I am no longer sick. It's great to have you back, Pam, that you're feeling well, city manager. And I'm grateful that, Steve, you did not catch my cold, and the mayor, thank you for remaining healthy. Two very quick items, and I'm going to give it back to you, Mr. Mayor. One, we have two workshops coming up tomorrow. That's Wednesday on the 10th at 7 o'clock at Embassy Suites. We're having a workshop on goal setting. As everybody knows, goal setting is going to be a week from this coming Friday. So tomorrow in my district, I'm inviting everybody to our workshop on goal setting, so we as a district could get our priorities straight, and I could bring that forward on behalf of my district. I want to thank NBC Suites and the management for providing the space there, and there will be refreshments served. The very next day, on the 11th at 6 p.m. at Broward General, we are going to have a workshop on the 17th Street improvements in preparation for the commuter rail station that's going to be built there. So that's going to be traffic, sidewalks, bicycles, pedestrian improvements that are going to be presented by the Department of Transportation.
Is that going to include discussion regarding the county's bypass road? Do we have progress on that?
No, it's not the 17th bypass. It's from Federal Highway West. It's that little piece that's leading up to the planned commuter rail station.
At the hospital?
Correct, right in front of the hospital.
Okay.
So
All right.
improvements.
Sorry.
And they have a couple plans, including a pedestrian streetscape, the median, what they want to do, and they're soliciting input. And Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Oh, okay. Okay. Just a few things. It was a very, very merry holiday period. The city came alive. Unfortunately, we had to cancel the boat parade, but aside from that, it was a very festive time for many people here in our community. I met a lot of new folks who have moved to Fort Lauderdale from other parts of the country. And we should all feel very good about the community that we have built together to make this such an attractive place for other folks to want to visit and to live. Did ribbon cutting for a new business, Pura Vida. It's a restaurant right next to the Whole Foods on Federal Highway. It goes to show you the vitality of the retail business, despite those naysayers who said that retail is dead. Clearly, it continues to be thriving, and definitely on Federal Highway in Fort Lauderdale. On the 29th, I attended the Kwanzaa Ujamaa festival, I guess it was. It was really fun, and I noticed that we reduced the funding for that event, and I'm hoping that next year or this coming years that we redo the budget, that we can restore the funding. We had over 150 people there,
it's always a well-attended event.
Well-attended. All those little kids.
Yes.
They laughed at my stupid jokes, so it had to be a fun event.
They were little kids.
They couldn't hear.
They were little kids. Yes.
But just to thank you for echoing what I had requested last year. It is a event that definitely needs additional funding.
We should.
So
we need
definitely
to
need to restore that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And then, of course, we had the downtown countdown, the dropping of the anchor. Many thousands of people showed up. It was really a fun event. But I'm putting it out there, and I've had initial talks with our folks at the Drive Pink Stadium that I'd love to see that event transferred over to the Drive Pink Stadium and have connect ourselves with the Live Nation and maybe have a concert there with real performers and drop the anchor from atop the stadium. I think it'd be a great, great opportunity for us to draw people from all over the county, all over South Florida, to make it a fantastic event. I have to thank Parks and Rec and all of our other people that work for the city that made New Year's Eve such a beautiful night for everybody. It was a little chilly, but I think it added to the festive nature of it. Everyone got to wear their winter clothes because everyone looks forward to doing that. I also want to mention that today is National Law Enforcement Day, and our new police chief, Schultz, has pointed this out to us. So I want to recognize all the first responders and those in law enforcement for all the great work that you do for us day in and day out. Thank you, thank you. And we look forward to your new leadership and your continued leadership as we move Fort Lauderdale forward into the next year. Coming up the next few days, Mills Pond Park, we're having a mural unveiling. That's going to be at 10 a.m. Valentino's restaurant, the former Valentino restaurant on the south side of the tunnel, is reopening, and that's going to be also January 11th at 5 p.m. That's 620 South Federal Highway. I understand our dear chef Giovanni is returning, and he's going to reopen the restaurant, so we're very excited about that. January 12th is the Martin Luther King Inspirational Breakfast at 7:30 a.m. at First Baptist Church. I plan to attend that. And then on the 15th, we, of course, as been mentioned, we have the Martin Luther King Parade. The step-off is at 9:30 a.m., and that's at the Sistrunk Northwest 5th Street area to Carter Park. And then I should say 5th Avenue, not 5th Street. The 18th, we have the FXC ACE Awards. That starts at 5:30. Looking forward to that. It's always a great event to recognize those folks who receive those awards. And on the 19th, the next day, we'll have the the groundbreaking for the Prospect Lake Water Treatment Plant. Really excited about that. Need to get that going. That'll be at 11 a.m. that morning. And it's another milestone for our community that it has taken in order to improve the resiliency of Fort Lauderdale. And then, of course, that afternoon begins the Commission Prioritization Workshop. That'll be also at the FXC facility. The public's invited, and very eager to hear what my fellow commissioners have to say about goals going forward, as well as from the community as we look to chart out 2024. One thing I would like to ask the city manager, Mr. City Manager, do we have an update on the Dottie Mancini Park situation?
Yes, we do. Mr. Mayor and Vice Mayor and members of the commission, we just received about an hour ago an update from Broward Health, and they are finalizing the terms and conditions so that we may enter into a short-term lease so that we may then reopen the park as promptly as possible. It has been a dialogue extensively for the past 3 weeks, but we are very optimistic that we're going to have something very soon.
So we should be able to reopen the park in the next few days, hopefully?
Hopefully.
Okay.
It's all right now pending legal review.
But that's just it's a temporary thing. Because we do have a long-term plan, do we not?
Yeah. So we're looking right now. How can we make sure that all values for both the Broward Health and ourselves that we can make sure we meet all their goals and our goals as well, which is to make sure we have that park for Imperial Point. And so we're looking at many options right now. Some are still not been formalized.
Right.
So I can't really disclose those yet until we have certain commitments from other third parties. But we do look forward to making sure that that park, or at least that space, which was leased to the city for $1 a year, that space becomes now available for the community, and the city will enter into some form of agreement with monetary value that presents a fair market value instead of just $1. And we look forward to having that proposal in front of you all for your approval as well.
All right. So just so everyone understands the situation, I think when the lease ran out last year, the hospital district wanted to use it for expanding their care facilities, and And as they had looked around the city for opportunities, they settled upon Dottie Mancini Park for a number of reasons. And now I think I want the folks to know that we've been working with the hospital district to allow them to improve their care facilities, but in a different location. And that's what we're working on now with the hospital district. Is that correct?
Yes, we're working exclusively with Mr. Shane Strum. He's been very accommodating, and certainly we look forward to finding something in lieu of
An
Dottie
alternative
Mancini.
site.
Correct. And we're very optimistic that too will be resolved.
Okay. All right. Very good. I appreciate
In that regard,
Yes.
obviously, I work with the hospital district. Mr. City Manager, quick question. On the table, I know that we're renting it for $1 a year, and there's some dollar value that's going back and forth. On the table, a land swap so we could actually acquire that land for something we have now. That was something that had been brought up to me, so we could own it for perpetuity and just a land swap with the district. Is that on the table?
Yes, we've presented many options to the hospital. For instance, we did prospecting around that area and presented certain available lands. But obviously, they have certain business needs and criterias as a healthcare facility that it would not accommodate for them. So we have expanded the search beyond District 1. We're looking forward to having something in place that at least settles long-term the use of Dottie Mancini. And certainly, I believe that in the next 90 days, we should have everything resolved.
Thank you very much, Mr. City Manager.
Great work. Thank you so much. Okay, so that concludes all of our afternoon conference meeting agenda, except we now ask the city manager for his report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So just wanted to report, I know this was something that Commission wanted us to accelerate and make sure that we have traction on, which is the tunnel study. So last week, staff met with the county and also the consultant. We received some good feedback and also certain concerns, which right now are being addressed by the consultant at the moment. The current focus is completing a level 4 cost estimate of what the system will look like and looking also at funding opportunities that will sustain the construction of the transport system. BDO is planning to come back at the end of January and conduct additional meetings with additional stakeholders, and we anticipate to have a BDO update at the February 6th conference meeting, so letting you and the public know about that. Today, we received also our agreement, our final agreement for the Regional Infrastructure Accelerator Grant. We're going to be working with our legal team to present that to you all in February as well. That's $974,000 that allows the city to do further evaluation of how a system can be constructed to have commuter rail and minimize impact on environmental and businesses and the community as well. I wanted to also chime in on some of the things that the Vice Mayor said about the toys and the holiday gifts. Just want to recognize that FWC Lieutenant Colonel Escanio and also Captain Hart, they reached out to me and I connected them with the chief, who also contributed to some of the toys that you saw in District 3, and certainly they were very excited to help as well. I wanted to let members of the community know, and also the commission, that Reimagining City Hall Workshop, the second one, is taking place this Saturday at 9 a.m. at the YMCA. There's going to be discussion about spacing allocation and what's involved to ensure that we have a very nice delivery for City Hall in the future, if that is a wish of the commission. And just wanted to also mention that during the tornado activation this Saturday, 42 homes were impacted. We received contacts from Representative Moskowitz, Representative LaMarca, and Senator Pizzo. and they were very concerned and also offered support for our recovery. Also received within minutes a phone call from Director Guthrie and also FWC Lieutenant Colonel Scanio as well, just to offer anything related to support, and we appreciate their partnership. And last, just wanted to share that we received a request from the elections office that they would like to use the Drive Pink Stadium. So we're going to start the discussions for having use of that. That may require one of the 4 days for the election day, November 5th for 2024.
As a what?
As a voting site.
Oh, really?
Yes. Oh. So just letting you all know
Expecting
that,
a big turnout. Expecting a very big turnout, huh? A stadium, wow.
They're going to set up tables, so we'll be counting Chads.
Wow, unbelievable.
Yeah, so we'll start those discussions if you all are okay with that. And that may require the use of one of the 4 days that the city has.
All right, I think we have an accumulation of days that we still haven't used.
Yes.
So.
I'm sure they can accommodate.
Okay.
Would that
And
be
may I-
us or the county asking for that, for the using it as an election site? That's the county asking, not us, right?
Yes, that is
It's the county
that is
asking us.
Supervisor of Elections, which is under the county, correct?
And Mayor, I would just take 1 minute because I was going to talk about this a little bit later this evening, but City Manager did just mention the tornado incident that we had.
Right.
And I did want to commend everyone, especially the City Manager and staff. When I received the call from that actually pretty much touched down in Riviera Isles in District 2, and then right around A1A in Las Olas, I received a call. It was really shocking to hear from a resident that part of her roof had just blown off in a tornado, and I just like, what? What? And no one really even knew. I called the city manager immediately. He had not been made aware of it yet because it just had happened. But I will tell you that the incredible response of emergency management, our first responders, our city manager, I've received so many calls and thank you emails from Riviera Isles, the president, and also residents in Riviera Isles, Dr. Mike Ruddy and others. So appreciative, and I wanted to make sure that I pass that on because it's not every day that we have a tornado touch down in our city, and I've seen a million videos already. Believe me, people are sending me videos from every condo, every person in that area, and it's quite astonishing. That did make news worldwide, but I want to tell you how appreciative I am, how grateful I am to the city manager and to all of our staff that were involved in so speedily getting to that site, doing that assessment, getting the power turned back on for the 42 homes, cleaning up the area. It was really quite incredible, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Oh, and
the clerk had one more thing, too.
Okay. Oh, the city, let me just on that vein, two quick things. I want to put a public thank you to that group. Remember, Greg, remember Samaritan's Purse, the ones that came down here and helped with the flood? Within an hour of the tornado touching down, they had contacted me and wondered if we needed any help. Obviously, we had nobody displaced, but this reminds me to thank them once again for all the work they had done with the flood. And one other thing, you had mentioned Captain Hart. I want to congratulate him on his promotion. I think he's Major right now, if he's out there, but Major Hart. So.
Oh, certainly. That's Major Hart with the Fort Lauderdale Police Department. Yeah. But Captain Hart is from the FWC.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
okay.
He's the one that is assigned to us and calls us every time we have an emergency.
Okay, well, congratulations to both of them.
Okay. Anything further, Mr. City Manager?
Yes, the clerk had requested to say, provide an update for you all.
Yes, Mr. Clerk.
Hi. So we are our office is bringing online campaign treasurer reports for elections to do the reporting through an online software that we purchased. And like other cities, I was asking if we could potentially bring forward an ordinance which would require that you use the online reporting system as opposed to just handing in paper. It's required by the state of that type of reporting, and many cities that I've talked to, they have passed an ordinance similar to that.
I mean, be in addition to the reports that we hand in, physical,
no,
or just in lieu of?
It would just replace it from handing in.
Totally
right,
in lieu.
It would just be requiring to just do it digitally.
I guess it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It allows us to report up till midnight of that day as opposed to 5 o'clock.
Correct.
That's the advantage.
I understand.
So if you don't have a computer, it's going to be difficult. I
I'll
mean,
see
do we need an ordinance? I mean, why don't we just see how it works?
Okay.
You know, rather than impose it on us, why don't we just see how it works the first go around? What do you think? Does it matter?
Do we have to allow it, or are we allowed to do that now?
Yes.
Or do we have to
Yes, we're allowed to do it.
Okay, so we don't need permission to
We don't need
do
permission to do it, but do we
to require it? Okay, I think
Yeah.
that's a good idea, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, why don't we just let's just do it let's just let us have it as an option,
Okay.
and we'll see how it works.
Oh,
out.
and it's still quarterly for now, or when does it flip to monthly?
Till
It's still
June.
quarterly. Yeah.
Okay,
till June.
okay.
After qualifying, it goes to monthly. So, City Clerk, let me just ask you. So, if we can do either one, we can do the online or the hard copy delivered to you by whatever those dates are that you tell us.
Yes.
So either one.
Either one.
Okay. Thank you.
And that'll be starting the next reporting period, not the one that's due tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah,
so,
because we haven't fully implemented it yet.
right. So that'll be for the January, February, March report.
That's what we're pushing towards to have it
Okay.
ready to go.
Do it like April 10th or whatever that is.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any further business of the commission on this conference? Never. We don't have anything else. Okay. This meeting is now concluded. Let's now move into our Community Redevelopment Agency Board meeting. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Herbst not present. Commissioner Glassman.
Here.
Vice Chair Beasley Pittman.
Here.
Commissioner Sturman.
Here.
Chair Trentalis.
Here. Moving on to the agenda, we have M1, motion approving the minutes for the December 19th, 2023 Community Redevelopment Agency Board meeting. Someone like to move the item?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Beasley Pittman.
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman.
Yes.
Chair Trentalis.
Yes, and M1 is now approved. R1, resolution approving the budget amendment, return Central City Community Redevelopment Agency fund balance for reallocation. Someone like to introduce the resolution?
Introduce.
I have one person who signed up to speak. Is Troy here?
Right there.
Oh, there you are. Would you like to speak? Troy is here on behalf of the Middle River Terrace Neighborhood Association.
Oh,
Wanna
don't
push
hear
the
you.
button?
Don't hear you.
There
Good
you go.
afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Ms. Vice Mayor, and the members of the commission. My name is Troy Liggett. I'm the president of the Middle River Terrace Neighborhood Association. I'm representing them here today. I'm also the secretary of the Central City Alliance, which is the business organization for that part of our city. But I'm not representing them. I just want to put that out there. I come with concern about this resolution for one specific reason. I'm here in support of the Central City Redevelopment Advisory Board. I've helped recruit people to serve on that organization, and they are the folks who are supposed to be helping set the priorities for the spending in this district. They're active neighborhood people who really care about that area and really want to work for improvements. The resolution that you have before you today returns $2.3 million back to the CRA. And those of us in the neighborhoods are very grateful for that. But to put that in perspective, that might be, as you're talking about billions of dollars today, that $2.3 million is small in the scope of things with the city, but it's very important for the neighborhood. That $2.3 million is basically equal to the revenue for the CRA for the last 3 years. And it hasn't been appropriated to projects or used for other things. We didn't realize that much money had been sitting in accounts for basically the appropriations for the last 4 or 5 years until the budget process of this year. And in August, the CRA staff presented their budget, and on behalf of Middle River Terrace Neighborhood Association, we showed up with a list of projects that we would like to be funded with these surplus funds in August. The CRA staff said, wait, we need to figure out how much money it's going to be. We don't know. So when we figure out how much money it's going to be, we're going to consider those projects that you've brought to us. the members of the board, and they're not here to speak for themselves, said, wow, we need to do something for that money to make it work for our neighborhood. I'm from Middle River Terrace. That also includes a sliver of Lauderdale Manors, one block in Lake Ridge, but also a significant part of South Middle River. Ed Catalano, who's now the new president of South Middle River, agreed that we need to work with the neighborhoods to fund some projects. I'd already brought some from Middle River Terrace. He wanted to go back to South Middle River and do that. In August, September, October, the members of the board asked staff to put that on the agenda, to consider these projects that the neighborhoods have brought. At the November meeting, the numbers that you see before you today were presented by the CRA director. They did not, the numbers you see today were not approved by the board. At that meeting, there were board members who expressed concern of, you know what, we had this presentation in August. Why aren't we considering these other projects? And I can't explain why the CRA staff didn't consider these other projects and are putting these before you today. I can tell you that these 3 appropriations are not the initiative of the neighborhoods. They were not presented by anyone from outside of CRA staff. And as far as, at least from my perspective and from attending that meeting, these are CRA staff's perspectives on where the money should go. The board did not endorse these transfers of the $2.3 million, but they're before you today. It's my understanding that the board didn't know that they were going to be before you today. They thought it was already a done deal. So I'm here today to ask you if you want to approve these transfers, let the board then consider other projects and maybe change the priorities as the board works with the neighborhoods on how they want to move forward. My personal preference would be to send this back to the board and say, do you endorse these projects? But if you want to go ahead and approve them now, please support our efforts to try to work together with the neighborhoods to come up with a plan on how to spend this $2.3 million in our neighborhoods. So I have a couple of specific questions.
So Troy, just for a second, let me just ask a question. Is Clarence here?
I'm sorry, Mayor. Clarence is at mandatory training, so he couldn't make it, but we have other CRA staff here.
All right, so is there a requirement that, isn't there, like, if we don't spend it within a certain fiscal year, we lose it? What's the deal here?
So the funds are being allocated towards programs that were discussed. To Mr. Leggett's point, the board can still request that we spend funding on other things. It doesn't have to be this. They have asked for us to put together, I guess, like a charrette that we are still working on timing for them to give us feedback on any other ideas that they have. But right now, I mean, this could be just a placeholder for the funds until it's determined where they actually want it to go.
So are we just banking the money right now until we have the priorities established by the advisory board? We're not spending it today, are we?
We're not spending it today. There is some funds that are allocated towards staff, like administrative fees, but the rest of the money is not being spent today.
But Mayor?
Yeah.
I just want to know, because I've been in close contact with Troy and others from the district, and I don't know what the urgency, if there is any urgency, but
No.
I don't want to deal with this item today. I actually want to see much more happen with regards to input from the board and the neighborhoods. I don't think we have to do this. I don't even like the placeholding idea, to be honest with you, because this item already has too many categories and too many things associated with it. And I just think that we need to have more input, more say from the board and the neighborhoods to make sure that the projects that have been, listed by Troy and others, whether it's 12th Street, whatever, I really just want to see this handled a little bit differently, City Manager.
Yeah, you definitely have that option. It is not time sensitive.
Okay, so
And the money's not going anywhere.
We're not compromising anything by deferring this to another meeting.
No, there's no, and Laura can confirm, there are no time-sensitive
There's no time-sensitive issue with regard
issues
to
yet
this
with
matter.
this.
But the only thing that's time, hi, Vanessa with the CRA. The only thing that's time sensitive is the actual FPL street ending off of Sunrise. We've been waiting to reallocate those funds for a while. We needed to get that. We have a budget
How much is,
associated
which one
with
is that? Which
Is
one
that the $93,359 for the street lights?
Yeah, so that's the only urgency here.
All right, so why don't we do that and then defer the rest? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but why? I know what you're saying. That's the 93,359 for street lights, right?
Yes. and
Okay,
so-
but it's listed under services and materials, other professional services. So why that heading? Why doesn't it say FP&L streetlights? I don't see any of that.
Oh, yeah, so it's just a general placeholder. It says other professional services, so we have 3,000s and 4,000 level accounts. And so you wouldn't see it broken down into the individual FPL.
So, Mayor, if we're talking about $2.3 million, then all we really need to deal with right now with urgency is $93,000 for streetlights. I'm fine with, trust me, with the streetlights. So I'm okay with that, but I'd like to just not assign the rest of these funds right now until we have much more clarification from the board
All right, so there's
and the neighborhood.
So you're moving that we allocate $93,359 towards the line item that's identified here, which is basically FP&L.
Well, it's actually identified as services and materials, other professional services.
Right, but in particular, it's for an FPL invoice, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's your motion. And defer the rest until further instruction from the CRA advisory board?
From the board and the neighborhoods, yes. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, did you want to say something?
I just wanted clarity. I'm just looking at Vanessa's face. She looks like she's not. Are you? I want to make sure we're going in the right direction and that we're not putting ourselves in a compromising position. We're understanding there's no time restriction, only the FP&L component of this, the street lights.
Correct.
So if we move in this direction of the motion, it will not compromise the other remaining funds.
Right. So there typically there is one, but because the city is the sole priority holder, it would be just based off of the city making that decision.
Okay.
So that's the only TIF funds that we receive.
Okay. All right. I just want to be comfortable making sure we're not.
Yeah, because I asked this.
Right.
Yes, you did.
And then, City Manager, I'm just wondering, because this is a rather significant dollar amount for several years of accumulating. Why don't we, in a more timely fashion, actually work on spending funds as we get them on projects that are identified as needed in the CRA?
I guess the advisory board hasn't presented it to them.
There are different factors. What I can do is this: we can bring back a plan to have more expedited fashion of expenditure of funds. Also, do more public input and make sure we have a more structured format so that when we present the budget for you, it is clear on what each line item is.
So maybe in the next 90 days we can get an update on this, and by then the advisory board could have met, as well as the neighborhood associations.
Right. No, that's good, because
Okay.
I am aware of needs and I am aware of requests from the neighborhoods within the Central City CRA, and I think that we could easily put together that list with them, and we could get going on some of these projects. I don't know why $2.3 million has accumulated over these years.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, very good. So so this is a resolution. So you're going to introduce a resolution approving the 93,000 plus. Let's see, the 93.
Well, I think the resolution's already been introduced, so we have to deal with that, either amend it or remove it. I think we already introduced
Vice
it,
Mayor,
right?
do you want to withdraw your introduction of the resolution?
Yes, I withdraw the introduction to the resolution.
Okay. So you're now you're introducing a resolution allowing for the allocation of $93,359 towards services and materials and other professional services, and you request that the balance of it be deferred to for a future date. Is that correct?
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Troy, you have anything else you'd like to add?
Laura?
Can I just chime in real quick? There's a budget amendment tonight related to this because you have to approve it as a CRA board and then commission. So we'll have to pull this and modify that one too. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Did you just say we have to pull this right now? No. Oh, just tonight?
Tonight.
Under the budget amendment.
Right.
No problem.
Okay. Okay, so please call the roll.
A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Fort Lauderdale Community Redevelopment Agency approving a budget amendment and return of Central City Community Redevelopment Agency fund amount of $93,359 for reallocation and providing for an effective date. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Chair Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Chair Trentalis?
Yes, and R1 is approved as amended. R2, resolution delegating authority to the executive director to execute and submit any and all application and documents necessary to effect the rezoning of a property from residential single family low medium density to Northwest Regional Activity Center mixed use west. This is at 531 Northwest 13th Avenue in Fort Lauderdale. Someone like to introduce the resolution?
Introduce.
Anyone have any comments? There being none, I'm sorry? Oh.
Do we have anything?
You have any comments? No one signed up to speak, so I'm just, okay. Please call the roll.
A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Fort Lauderdale Community Redevelopment Agency authorizing and approving an application to rezone the real property located at 539 Northwest 13th Avenue, Fort Lauderdale, Florida 33311 from residential single-family low-medium density to Northwest Regional Activity Center mixed-use west, delegating authority to the executive director to execute and submit any and all applications with supporting documents and filing fees necessary to rezone the property and to take all necessary steps and reasonable steps and actions to process the application, providing for an effective date. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Chair Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Chair Trentalis?
Yes, and R2 is now approved. Is there any further business of the CRA board? There being none, that meeting is now concluded, and that concludes this afternoon's meetings, and we'll resume at 6 p.m. this evening. Thank you.